Can I have your attention, please? If I'd have your attention, I'd like to call this summit to order for the Texas Electrical Safety and Licensing Advisory Board. Thank you for being here today. It is actually 9:02 a.m. and we do have a quorum present. I'm fixing to go through that. Keith Bell, presiding officer, I'm present. Mr. Michael Gramillion.
Present.
Mr. John Lewis.
Present.
Ms. Stacy Malcolm. Mr. Stephen Pomacall.
Present.
Mr. Joseph Roach. Mark. There he is. Mr.
Present.
Roach is present. Mr. John Sparrow.
Present.
Mr. Gary Strauss.
Present.
And Mr. Marcus Lundgren.
Present.
We do have a quorum present on this 11th day of January 2018. Once again, I'd like to welcome you here today. This is the first, 14 years that we've ever had a summit at this location to talk about specifically the industry and workforce development. So I just want to commend Mr. Francis, Executive Director, and David Gonzales for pulling, and the department for pulling this together today. I think we're at a place that we need to really consider the workforce development of our industry, electricians. You can tell by looking at me, I'm aging, so we need to get some more folks in the trade. So, and it's busy. It's a good time to be us. So with that said, I'll move on to item B, which is introduce our guest speakers, and turn the meeting over to Mr. David Gonzales. Mr. Gonzales.
Howdy and good morning, everybody. Good morning. So I am an Aggie, and so the howdies will be prevalent through the morning. Please don't hold it against me. I'm really glad to see a packed house here today. We sent an email blast out via our list server to 237,000 people. I was afraid that maybe we'd have too many people in the room, but the biggest fear would be that nobody would show up. I'm glad y'all are here. We can't do this without you. So thank you for our presenters for being here. For our all-volunteer advisory board, thank y'all for being here. This is extra duty for you guys, and definitely for all the attendees that are going to be participating today. There's going to be some discussion, I expect, but there's got to be a starting point for the discussion. We're trying to find out in this summit if we can find a way to increase the number of qualified electricians in Texas. We've got to have a starting point, so I'm going to go and hopefully this all works the way I'm expecting it to. And, of course, it will not. We're going to start off with our numbers. Lisa, I hope I'm not stealing your thunder for a later meeting today, but these are our licensing numbers as of January 2018. According to our numbers of registrations for fiscal year 2017 total, we have 16,548 master electricians in the state of Texas. 528 master sign electricians. Journeyman electrician, we have 35,353 total population. Journeyman sign, 353. Journeyman lineman, 21. Maintenance electricians, 1,065. Residential wiremen, 1,477. And then apprentices, we have a whopping 75,178 apprentices. Sign apprentices, electrical contractors, 2,247. 9,755 on the contractors and sign contractors. These are the numbers we're dealing with. It has been stated, I think it's well known, that in the state of Texas, it's hard to find electricians, especially ones that can do that work. So our discussion here today is going to focus on what we can do, and we can't do it by ourselves. It's going to take y'all's input to make it happen. As part of the notices for our summit, we actually sent out a blast saying to download the Poll Everywhere app. How many people, by a show of hands, have actually downloaded that app to their telephone or their computer? Awesome. That's awesome. So if you didn't do it, you can still participate. And in fact, I might oblige some of those that the gentleman was telling me earlier, what's an app? And so for those individuals that are app challenged or maybe still don't have a smartphone, we understand. We're trying to bridge the gap between technology and how we need to serve our customers. I went to the grocery store this morning, and they have curbside pickup. You text in your order, and they bring it out to you. You don't even have to go into the store. This is the kind of service that people are expecting nowadays, and we're trying to find how that fits into what we do as a government entity and how we're going to serve our public. So we sent the blast out to 237,000 people. This is what we got in person. I don't know what's listening at home. I'll be asking Mr. Westrom, our IT guy, what those numbers are at the end to see how many people were listening in and paying attention to what we have to talk about and what we have to explore. If you have not downloaded the app, it's polleverywhere.com. Let me bring it up on the whiteboard. Polleverywhere.com, and then if you're using it on your phone, /mobile. It's a real easy interface. You got to know your iTunes App Store or your Google account information, but once you get it on there and once I put up the polls, you understand how this works. It's a really simple interface, so we're encouraging, and you can participate with this at home as well. There's a 30-second delay from the YouTube channel to the participants from home, so I might be talking a little bit slower. I might insert some banter in between when I put the questions up, but once I activate the questions, anybody in this room can participate. Should be anonymous unless you put some kind of strange name out there for us to identify you. We want to keep it clean. Please, no profanity. We do have some filters that kind of take care of these stuff, but this stuff may frustrate you, it may upset you. We want to keep it clean. This is a public forum, and we need to make sure that we're using the right protocols. All righty. More housekeeping. So trying to manage our expectations, we have invited a couple of speakers. For us to make this work, we have a microphone set up over here. So again, I'm going to remind everybody, if you want to speak, whether it's a question or just a comment, I need you to go to that microphone. If you want to get in line, if it starts to have a queue, these chairs over here are the queue for the microphone, so we can have everybody listening at home and at work listening in on the conversations. They cannot hear without these microphones. We ask that you identify yourself, you speak your name, where you're from, and if you like, who you're representing. We will take a short break between our speakers to allow them for setup, and you can take your bathroom breaks whenever you want to. Just get up, walk out the doors. They're over there by the elevators if you need to. All right, without any further ado, and I think I'm on track, we have invited some speakers here today, and I want you to give them a warm welcome. They have taken time out of their day. Yes, Mr. Allard.
I see some people are stuck on the pole everywhere.
Okay.
Once you get there, click the TDLR for join.
So if you're stuck on the poll everywhere, there's a slash afterwards. You put TDLR afterwards, and that'll hook you up. It's going to make you probably register your email or your name. After that TDLR is in there, you're going to be to our page. Thank you, Alaric. So I should actually introduce Mr. Alaric is actually going to be my technical guru on the Poll Everywhere site. If there's anything that comes up, he's going to interject and let me know that we may be having a challenge. Again, new technology, we're trying to do more outreach. We want more than the 50 or 60 people here. We want those thousands at home giving us their input. This is one of the ways we're exploring. We've used this one time before. It had limited success because we did a limited rollout. We're exploring a little bit more and reaching out to a few more people, so the only way it really works is if we actually make mistakes, see if we can test its boundaries and maybe have some problems with it, see if there's issues. If there are any issues from the people listening at home or even in the audience here, you can send an email to inspections@tdlr.texas.gov, and I've got someone upstairs monitoring that email address to let me know if there's any technical difficulties that we may need to help out or clarify. The important part of that Poll Everywhere is going to come later during the brainstorming, but I wanted y'all to start now so that we could actually be ready for it when it comes. So let me go ahead and I'm going to activate the very first question from our Poll Everywhere site before I make my introduction, just so y'all can see what it looks like. And let's see if I can get there. Internet, Poll Everywhere. We're going to go to the question, and we're going to activate a question. So no need to do anything really fast and rush. We've got plenty of time. I'm going to go to the actual presentation now for our next speaker, for our first speaker. Let me see if I can find that. That one's you. And you. All right. Our first invited speaker has worked for the Texas Workforce Commission as an economist, analyzing and disseminating labor market trends for 18 years. She currently manages the Dissemination and Outreach Unit of the Labor Market and Career Information Department. She's traveled across Texas to business conferences, workforce boards, and chambers of commerce to discuss current trends and various economic indicators to understand their respective local economies. She is also the editor of the Texas Labor Market Review and other publications. Please help me in welcoming Ms. Mariana Vega.
Thank you, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here. Thanks. My name is Mariana Vega. I work for the Texas Workforce Commission, specifically the Labor Market and Career Information Department. And today, I'm going to give you a labor market overview of the Texas economy. Hopefully the information will be helpful to you, or at least give you a better understanding of what's happening in the economy today. I will dive into more specific statistics involving electricians, because that's what is of interest to you. And I'll also briefly touch on the Apprenticeship Texas initiative that Texas Workforce Commission is working on. So, I'm going to go ahead and start with the unemployment rate. It's pretty much one of the most recognized economic indicators in Texas. Beginning in 2007, as you can see, Texas has had a lower unemployment rate than the U.S. In October of 2017, the unemployment rate actually dropped to 3.7%, which is a historically low rate. It's the lowest rate in the history of the series, which started in 1976. So having low unemployment rates is really good, but this is also when we run into skill or shortages, labor shortages, right? So I know it's a reoccurring theme, even in my office, that we're losing staff. We can't find the appropriate skilled employees that we need. So economic theory states that full employment is really between 3 and 5%, or when the unemployment is between 3 and 5%. Next, we're going to go ahead and go over the employment growth. And we are focusing on annualized employment growth only because it's less volatile than looking at it at a monthly basis. So just as expected, Texas is growing faster than the U.S. It currently has an annualized employment growth rate of 2.7%. The U.S. currently stands at 1.4%. So again, sustainable economic growth is usually when the employment growth is between 2 and 3%. As you can see, there was a slight decline in 2015 and 2016 when the Texas employment growth dropped below the U.S., and that was mainly due to the oil and gas industry, which is it's a small industry, but it's a big driver in Texas. But for the most part, all industries are showing good growth. This graph right here shows how Texas has recovered really well from the recession in 2008. It is indexed to pre-recession peaks, which just means that the peak of growth prior to the 2008 recession equals 100%. So we're seeing how much the state or the nation as a whole has grown since the recession. And as you can see, Texas is doing really well. It has grown over 16% over the peak of the growth in 2008, while the U.S. has only grown 6.4%. Now, overall in Texas, there are other metro areas that are growing just as fast, if not faster, than Texas. For example, we have Dallas-Fort Worth area that is currently growing, or has grown over 18% over the pre-recession peak. This right here is the annual growth rates for the metro areas, and they are ranked by growth rate. So it's not uncommon to see like the bigger 5 metro areas have the best growth rates only because they're bigger. We are seeing growth, though, outside of the main metro areas. And as you can see, unemployment rates are pretty low across all metros. The Midland, Amarillo metro areas have some of the lowest unemployment rates at 2.6. College Station Bryan, Austin, Round Rock, follows with 2.7%. And as you can see, College Station, Bryan area does make the number one, or ranks number one as far as annual growth. That's a mid-sized metro area, so it's not considered one of the largest, so that's interesting to see. Trying to keep up with my notes as well. So here's the state of Texas, and it is divided up into the 28 workforce development areas. And to the left, you see the 7 major industries, and those are ranked by average weekly wages. So mining, oil, and gas will have the highest weekly wages, while retail trade has the lowest. And I just want to show you the next slide has a macro in it, and hold on, did it start? So this is a macro, and so it's showing you across the years what the number one industry of employment has been for Texas. So in 1990, you saw a lot of manufacturing in the state of Texas, but it's changing. Every year, it hasn't stayed constant, it has changed every year. And now we're seeing that the number one industry of growth is actually the healthcare industry. And this is, for the most part, true for all of the workforce board areas. You still see a lot of oil and gas in the Permian Basin, as well as retail trade. This is happening not just in Texas, it's happening across the nation. The only 3 states where this is not happening is Hawaii, Nevada, and Alaska. And does anybody know what the number one industry of employment is in those states? You're right, tourism, hospitality and tourism. So, and I don't expect that to change for those states at all. So these are the annual growth rates by industry. So even though the state of Texas is dominated by the healthcare industry, you can see that the strongest annual growth rates aren't in the healthcare industry. It's actually right now in mining and logging at 15.2%, followed by education services at 5.7%. Construction is doing really well too. Construction is posting a growth rate of 3.4%. And this is the same type of information, but this just shows you the net change of employment over the month and over the year. So professional business services and leisure and hospitality are expected to be at the top only because they're very large industries, and they also grow with population growth. Information looks like we have it posting a negative growth, but you have to keep in mind that those are based on estimates, and that's a very, very small industry, and so the sample size is very small. These estimates are revised every year. They're actually, we have analysts currently revising these estimates, so we expect the drop to not be as much. So we're going to go ahead and switch gears and switch the focus to industry and occupational projections. So this is the expected growth. Well, I do want to mention that we do create projections for the state of Texas and the 28 workforce board areas. And what we do is basically take a base year and compare it to a target year that's 10 years out. So the most current long-term projections available are for 2014 to 2024. And here you can see the expected growth for the different industries. Those highlighted in green are goods producing. And again, if you can see, construction is the third, the industry that's expected to grow at 27.8%. We do see a decline in natural resources and mining, but that's mainly because when these projections were created, they used the base year of 2014. That's when we were seeing declines in that industry, and projections are largely based on trend. So that's not necessarily accurate. We will have new long-term projections released in September of this year. And just kind of focusing a little bit more on the construction industry, we did take the data back to 1990. Hold on, 1990. And we can see that the construction has been steadily growing, and we do expect it to continue to grow. We have seen that home sales continue to rise. Inventories are actually having a little bit of trouble keeping up, which has pushed up the average price of the homes. These kind of trends kind of indicate that there's going to be a continued growth in this industry. And the reason I'm focusing a lot on the construction industry is because even though electricians span across all industries, 69% are actually specifically in the construction industry, or 69%. By 2024, that's going to go up a little bit to about 74%. If we dive a little bit deeper into the construction, or actually this is construction, mining, and manufacturing, we can see where most electricians are located. And again, it's going to be in the construction under building equipment contractors. And this building equipment contractors stems off of the specialty trade contractors. This next slide gives you or tells you what the wages are across industries. So even though most electricians are in the construction industry, the construction actually has the lowest annual average wages. Financial activities has the highest at almost $60,000. So just to give you an idea or something to compare it with, the average annual wage in Texas is $47,767. So it's a little bit below the Texas average annual wage. These are apprenticeable occupations that we have information for in my department. And as you can see, strong growth is expected throughout all of these occupations. And listed to the right are the average annual wages for 2016. So they are listed in order of employment size. So electricians is the largest occupation up there. Millwrights is the smallest. I know you presented some numbers on the number of electricians registered in Texas, and yours is probably really accurate. Yes. So we have, as far as electricians in Texas, a little bit over 57,000. Carpenters, 51,000. Plumbers, 37,000. And after that, the numbers drop considerably. So these are your largest skilled trade occupations. So again, projected growth in electricians in Texas is expected to be 27%. This is an addition of over 15,000 electricians that are going to be needed. This is mainly because we have an increasing population in Texas and also baby boomers retiring. So each year, it's expected that we're going to need at least 2,500 electricians. 1,595 due to growth, and another 875 due to replacements. So replacements can be because of the retiree workforce or people just leaving the industry, period, for another one. So these are the annual wages for electricians. You have entry level, median, and experienced. I did include the median only because I think it represents the wages a little bit better than the average because it gets rid of your extremes. So the numbers are not as skewed as your regular average. So most of these wages are above the Texas median wage for all occupations. So to me, this is less skewed than looking at the average wage for Texas. So, hold on. Next, we're going to look at job postings. And this is what we call real-time data. And so this gives us a little bit more information as far as what employers are looking for, as far as or what the employer demand is in Texas. So these are the help wanted listings by metro areas for electricians. Again, it's not uncommon to see bigger metropolitan areas up at the top, only because they're larger areas, therefore they're going to have more job postings. What's interesting to me, though, is just comparing the over-the-year change. For most of Texas, it's been positive. So there's been an increase in need for electricians overall in Texas, which I'm sure you know, because that's why we're here, right? So job postings also tell us who the top employers in Texas are. And so these are going to be your larger employers, KBR, Trade Management, American Lighting, and Signalation. It doesn't seem like they've posted very many, but you have a lot of your smaller employers or even contractors postings. Actually, last year there was over 4,000 job postings for electricians. If you add in electrician helpers, that adds another 2,000 or so postings. So skills. Job postings not only tell us who those employers are, but they also tell us what kind of skills employers are looking for in their employees. So for electricians, the hard skills mostly in demand are knowing how to read and follow blueprints, knowledge of electrical systems and switches, preventative maintenance and instrumentation. I also have some information on certificates that are mostly in demand for electrician type jobs. Believe it or not, driver's license comes up as #1 in pretty much every job posting. It's very important because that's how you get to your job, or even in this type of job where you have to go to different job sites, a driver's license is very necessary. Aside from that, obviously, you have your essential certifications and knowledge of electrical codes that are needed in this industry. So I included a quote from Rick Stevens from Boeing Company, and it says, "There's not one specific thing or skill people have to work for us, but I can tell you why we fire people, and that's soft skills. We hire for hard skills and fire for soft skills." He was interviewed by a staff member here at TWC, and it just goes to show you how important soft skills are additionally to your hard skills and certificates. So these are the most soft skills in demand for electricians. Troubleshooting and oral and written communication pretty much rank very high across all occupations. I will say that when looking at job posting analytics, it's very important to use in conjunction with other labor market information data, only because it might not encompass all of the demand that's out there. And also, these analytics are mainly produced, or they're based on software that kind of crawls the internet. So it's only as good as the data is only as good as how well those websites are scrubbed for that information. So I'm going to go over a few demographic slides for just to kind of complete the economic picture. So here I have listed your metro areas with the largest population gain for the nation. So you have Dallas, Houston, Austin, and San Antonio make those top 15 largest areas that are growing the most in the nation. Texas has actually added more employment than any other state in the nation, so that's how fast we're growing, which is a good sign because it's a sign of economic vitality. It's really what drives growth, or one of the variables that drives growth across all industries. Again, these are some of your fastest growing cities. As you can see, Conroe, Frisco, McKinney are in the Dallas area. We do have 7 of the 15 fastest growing cities in the nation. Again, some demographic information on electricians. I decided to include this slide only because there's a lot of talk about a shortage of skilled workers because people are retiring. So we can see here what the age breakout of electricians is right now. And I think overall, Texas is actually doing pretty well on this end, only because the electricians that are ages 45 and older make up almost 40%. I know as far as age breakout in some of the skilled trades, that number is sometimes up to 60, 65%. So really, it's not as bad, I guess, as other skilled trades. Again, education for electricians. This is what the education attainment looks like. Obviously, this is a skilled trade, so a college degree is not required. So you won't see high numbers in the areas of associate's degree and bachelor's degree or professional degrees. But nonetheless, it is a skilled occupation that requires certifications and licensing. And this is actually another reason why we believe there's a shortage in these type of skilled workers. You know, parents, I think, have always pushed kids to go for that 4-year college degree, university degree, when really the skilled trade jobs are really good paying jobs. We're actually releasing a report in the next couple of days. It's going to be published on our website, and it's called the Annual Report on Growth Occupations, where we research jobs that are in high demand and that are high paying. And what we noticed is that they pretty much span across all types of jobs. We found a lot of those jobs are skilled trades. There are professional trades as well, but they're very good paying jobs. So I think that's something we kind of need to change the messaging in school.
Excuse me, Ms. Vega.
Sure.
Would you still be able to see the board if we dim the lights? I know some of the people back are having difficulty seeing some of the numbers.
Definitely.
Try it.
Definitely, yes.
Thank you. Sorry to interrupt.
No, that's okay. I think actually it would be better overall for me as well.
Nobody can go to sleep, though.
There you go.
No snoring.
So I do want to go through some additional resources. You know, the Texas Workforce Commission is aware of the impending shortage in the skilled trades. So through a grant given by the Department of Labor, they are working on an initiative called Apprenticeship Texas, where they're working with employers to build up the apprenticeship program. So the idea is not only to develop and implement strategies to support apprenticeships, but also to expand apprenticeships to new sectors and also to underserved populations. There's a lot of benefits to being part of this program. For employers, it not only helps you recruit and develop highly skilled workforce, but you also prepare for a retiring workforce. You can earn tax credits, and overall it helps you kind of create that talent pool and retain your workforce. That email address below is where you can get more information if you're an employer. It's apprenticeshiptexas@twc.state.tx.us, and you'll actually have one-on-one assistance. A staff member will help you kind of guide you through the process and develop an apprenticeship model specifically for your business that works for your business, and guide you through the process of setting up a program like that. For apprentices, it's also a great opportunity because it's an opportunity where you can earn while you learn. So basically what happens when you sign up for a program like this is that you work with a journey worker, and obviously there's some academic instructions that's required as well, but overall it results in an occupation credential. It's a great way to earn money, get hands-on experience, build up your skills. There are over 1,200 apprenticeable occupations that are registered with the Department of Labor. So we do direct students to www.mynextmove.org. It is a website that's sponsored by the Department of Labor, and it's a really good website. I've been on it. You can actually search for apprenticeship opportunities available by zip code. So I kind of put in my zip code, and around my area there was around 90 registered sponsors for apprenticeships. So I thought that was a really good resource. You can always contact the state agency. I'm pretty sure every state has a program like this. Here in Texas, it's at apprenticeship@twc.state.tx.us. For more information, when we get requests like this, we do try to work with students to get them paired up with the opportunity that works for them. So during a time like this, when there's these type of shortages, we do recommend that employers work closely with the workforce boards, with schools as well, to create these kind of rapid training programs that will lead to the retraining or training of the current workforce. I think it's very important to do that. We do have other web-based tools developed by my department at the Labor Market and Career Information. I think not only can you research occupations, but you can also get wage information. I think it's very important to know that you're paying a competitive wage at this time. I know when people are competing for the workforce or employees, it tends to drive up wages a little bit, and I think sometimes people tend not to keep up with that. We do have a monthly publication. It's released every month, and it includes the latest economic indicators. You might be interested in receiving that. You can sign up to receive it if you go to our website at lmci.state.tx.us. You'll get this little box to sign up for Gov delivery emails, so you can get it directly to you. And this is our contact information. If you have any questions on the data that I just presented, or you want more information, or you need help, some sort of guidance, we'll be more than happy to assist you. If you'd like a copy of the presentation as well, I'll have it available to share with you if you'd like. And this is my direct contact information if you need that. So that does conclude my presentation. If there's any questions at all, I'll be more than happy to try to answer those right now.
Mariana, we send you an email to get a copy of this presentation?
Yes, I can do that.
Let me interject. This is David Gonzalez with TDLR. If you're agreeable to it, we could actually post it on our website, if that would help, if you would allow us to do that.
That's
That way
perfect.
everyone could go to one point for the summit to gather that information.
Yes, that's
Or
perfect.
you can do the email as well, but I think you getting 50, maybe even thousands of emails.
Yeah, I don't know if I want that, right?
So
Let's do it that way. We'll just post it on your website, and it's free for everyone to have if they're interested in it.
thank you for making it available. I would like to start off the questions, if you don't mind. David Gonzalez with TDLR. David Gonzalez with TDLR. So you pointed out in the presentation, there's a discrepancy with the numbers that we have for obviously we do the licensing and the registrations.
The licensing,
And
yes.
y'all get y'all's numbers reported from,
Well, they're actually they're estimates, so they are sample-based. They are benchmarked to actual employment numbers every year, but actual employment numbers lag behind a bit. They lag behind 6 months. That's why to get more current information, we base those on estimates.
understood. So if there's some need, obviously we can share our numbers with you
That would be
and
great,
the
at
agency. I
least
think
to see. you know, the
registrants isn't the
difference.
same as employed, but it definitely might help in being able to compare those numbers. So that was the first question that I have. Your numbers for wages, where did those numbers come from? Are they reported to you by some group?
So we do have what we call the Occupational Employment Survey Wage Program in our department, and it is funded by the Bureau of Labor Statistics, so it's a federally funded program. And again, it is sample-based, so we do send surveys out to employers, and we get information back. So our information is largely dependent on employer participation. So we would have more information on more occupations if we got better participation. So there are some occupations where the information is confidential only because we didn't receive enough information.
Do the employers who participate get like free raffle tickets or anything for
Unfortunately
giving them?
not.
Okay.
Unfortunately not.
That's the questions I had for you.
We don't have the funds to do that.
That's the questions I had for you. The mic is open for anybody that would like to, or anybody from our board.
Yes.
Ms. Vega, would assume, regardless of whether or not the numbers are different between what we show as licensed electricians and those that you show are working, the growth rates would be the same. I mean, the electricians that want to be employed today are 100% employed, so we could apply these same percentages of increases to the population we know we have to determine the real number of openings. Is that a fair
So,
statement?
partly, because projections are also based on trend. So they're not, and really when you have like any type of, I guess, disaster, let's take, for example, Harvey, can kind of disrupt the numbers a little bit. And we saw that happen, where we saw kind of employment drop temporarily, but then it kind of came back with a vengeance because you had that need to reconstruct. So you had an increased need for those skilled workers. So when you have disasters like that, or anything that kind of disrupts the economic activity, it changes things a bit. So that's why it's important to kind of bring in all different types of economic indicators and not just focus on one, to kind of give you the overall picture of what's happening. But definitely, I mean, I do think the growth rates are reflective of what's happening in the economy, and I do think we can use that to base, or at least a lot of decisions that have to be made on.
The other observation I would tell you is the wages that you put up with the three different levels, the starting and then the top
Yes.
of the range. That's those are good numbers.
No, thank you.
Those are respective of what we see in the industry and what we're paying today as employers.
Thank you.
Question? Ms. Vega, Mark
Yes.
Roach, TDLR Advisory Board. I noticed that you had some age information on one of your charts there. Have you calculated an average age of electricians in the state?
I didn't calculate an average age for electricians in the state. I can do so. So that data was census data. It's not data that we actually produce in my particular department, but we do kind of branch out and use census data, obviously, because they have just any data imaginable. But I can look into that, and actually, if you give me your contact information, I can let you know. I know in the nation, I think the average wage for electricians is 55.
55.
Yeah, but in Texas, I don't have a number.
Kind of scary.
It is, and that's one of the main concerns. Hi.
Hi, my name is Turner Wright. I'm with the IBW, Local Union 716 in Houston. Have you come across any data that may show trends where markets with rising wages are attracting a growing number of workforces? In other words, is there data that can show markets with higher wages are attracting workers to their markets?
So that kind of data is limited. Census does provide some job-to-job flow data. It doesn't go down to a specific level as far as like a 6-digit occupation. It's available more at the industry level. So you can see most construction jobs are actually lost to other construction jobs, or they stay within the same industry, and it's mostly due to wages. So they do have information like that available. I think it's one in every 5 construction jobs are actually lost to another construction type job.
And so you can verify then with the data that you've been looking at over the years that I guess higher wage markets attract workforces.
Yes,
Okay.
that's accurate.
Thank you.
Sure.
Ryan Pendergraft with the National Electrical Contractors Association. When you mentioned the Apprenticeship Texas program websites, you mentioned two words that caught my attention, tax credits.
Sure.
Can you tell me a little bit more about those, what they are, what's involved, that sort of thing?
So I actually am not an expert on the Apprenticeship Texas program. We do have staff available that specifically work with that program. I do encourage you to contact. The email it was in the website. I don't know
Yep.
if you got it.
I did.
But, yeah, they would be able to give you more information on that.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Ms. Vega, do you happen to have any knowledge about what kind of tax credits that you're talking about?
I don't, only because, so the apprenticeship programs are managed by the Department of Labor. The states are helping work with the Department of Labor to kind of get this initiative going. So I don't have any specific information, but again, we do have staff at the Texas Workforce Commission that would have more information specifically on any questions pertaining to the Apprenticeship Texas.
Hi, good
Hi.
morning.
Hi, good
My
morning.
name is Aaron. I work at a nonprofit here in Austin. We're called Skill Point Alliance, and we actually are a workforce training nonprofit. We have an electrical program. We consider ourselves pre-apprentice. We're not running an apprentice program, but kind of at the entry point into the pipeline. And so a lot of the individuals who graduate from our program are actually becoming electrician helpers
Right.
first, and we hope that they will go on into an electric apprentice program. Did your data uncover anything unique to the electrician helper occupation title?
So I didn't include anything to the electrician helper title. And the presentation was mainly focused on electricians. We do have that data available. If you want to contact me or at my email, mariana.vega@twc.state.tx.us, I'll be more than happy to put together some stats for you. I know for a fact that electrician helpers do tend to earn about $10,000 less than an electrician overall. I'm not sure what the requirements are, to be honest with you, off the top of my head, but like I said, I'll be more than happy to put together something for you.
Thank you very much.
Sure. So, any other questions?
Let me just say, Mariana, while you're up here, thank you very much for
Thank
being
you.
here. So I would like to say that she's an economist. She brought the numbers. They were up there for everybody to see, more than we have time to delve into in a 30-minute presentation. You did a wonderful job. I'd like to thank you for the time that you spent. The presentation will be placed on our website. I think it's important, Mr. Bell, I think you have a background in the economy. There's a lot of work that goes into this. I'm very happy. This is not our wheelhouse. We are the facilitators here for this presentation, but we employ 2 electricians. That's all I got. They're filled, and you can't steal them from me either, please. Don't get their contact. Don't take their cards. That's what we do. We got 2 electricians. But with everybody here in this room, if y'all can look at these numbers and see what the trends are, share this information amongst yourselves. Y'all may be able to do something about this, and we may be able to help facilitate that as well, which is the goal of our job here. So we are also on limited budget, but as a parting gift and for you being here, Austin is a place that requires, done away with the plastic bags. So we have a TDLR bag with our contact information, and it is cold and flu season, so there's some hand sanitizers in there as well. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Hey, David.
Yes, sir?
Before you move on, I want to commend Chairman Bell for his ability to be able to see that information that was presented on the board there from where he's sitting right there.
Thank you.
It is a challenge. You know, we got the big screen here, and it still ain't big enough. If we were watching football, I'm sure we could find a bigger screen, but we've got what we got. So,
David, Bryan Francis back here. Just want to add in, I'm glad everyone's here. Advisory board members, those seats in the front can be yours. You're not restricted to that podium back there, so float up. And I saw that we also have the junior high element of everyone gravitating to the back of the room, as far back from the board as possible. But the seats up there in the front are available, and I would encourage you guys to get a little closer because I was squinting as well, way back here, so I may avail myself of my own recommendation, suggestion.
One benefit, David Gonzalez with TDR, one benefit for being at home, if our IT gurus back behind the scenes were able to put up our screens, they're able to make their screens as big as they want to and size it however they want to. So one benefit of not having to travel to Austin is potentially seeing this a little bit clearer. So one more thing I want to point out before we get off. Mariana was here from the Texas Workforce Commission. There is a state agency that is dedicated to the workforce in Texas. There's a couple of other entities as well, but that's pretty important. And if they're the resource, if they have publications, it only works if you make use of those resources. I've got a contact name and an email address. You're going to be hearing from us because we're not going to take care of this all in one meeting. So thank you again for being here, and I appreciate your time and effort. So we are going to take a 5-10 minute break before we start the next presenter. Before you go, I want to make sure that everybody knows that I posted and activated a poll question. It was an icebreaker. It's actually called, what area of Texas is the most difficult to find a qualified electrician? So somebody posted one out here in the New Mexico area. I expect it may be hard to find them out there. This is just to get people comfortable. We can handle up to about 100 responses at a time. I can clear the results, take another 100 responses. Some of the other questions we ask will be more, you have to text things in and give us your actual written response. This was just a test. But this allows us to capture data. It will be placed in a recorded file that we could actually pull data, and if we do more of these things, if we take this show on the road, Mr. Sparrow had actually offered to get us a room for 400. If we can take the Poll Everywhere app on the road and get this kind of data, we can get more feedback from the industries and each section, because I expect, and the reason I put this one up here, each region has a different answer. Obviously, we have these green points all over the state, but I expect Amarillo and the Permian Basin have a little bit different issue about finding that qualified electrician than the people down in southeast Texas and the Houston-Harvey area, or even in South Texas. There's some wage disparity probably there. There's probably availability and even training issues. So we all know there's a shortage, but what we're going to do to address those problems may be different depending on the region. So this was the starter. I'm going to give y'all till 10:05 to return back, and then I will be making introductions to our next speaker, Mr. Mike Maroney. So please return promptly so we can start at 10:05. Thank you very much. There's TDLR. That's actually where the presentation is at. If you haven't downloaded the app, it's going to allow for this kind of input, and it's real time. If I'm on my phone right now, I can clear my last response, post it. I'm going to post it in the Panhandle this time, and it pops up almost real time. So everybody here in the audience can participate this way. Anybody listening at home, if they downloaded the app, can give us their input. And so when he asks more in-depth questions where we're going to be getting answers and responses, you're going to be able to see those as well. Hopefully we can keep up with them. So I'm going to take this down. And we have another speaker. He has to follow Ms. Vega, so he's got a big challenge up in front of him. Let me get his presentation up here so we can be prepared. All right. Not that it's a competition, but we definitely want to build on the previous presentation. Since 2011, he has been recognized and ranked as one of the top 100 hired gun lobbyists in Texas by the online political magazine Capital Inside. He and his partner wife, Shannon, serve as trusted advisors to clients. He joined Huntsman in 2002 after spending 4 years with Austin-based Public Strategies Incorporated, where he has served Fortune 500 clients in Texas, Arkansas, Washington, and various industries including telecommunications, chemical manufacturing, electricity generation, oil and gas exploration, and production. He's a native of Arkansas, earned a degree in communications with Arkansas State University. All right, SEC, we're doing good. All right. Which advises Texas Education Commissioner Mike Morath on the state's public education accountability system. He also served on the Career and Technical Education TEKS Review Committee, responsible for the rewrite of the Texas Essential Knowledge and Skills for Career and Technical Education curriculum. Please join me in welcoming Mr. Mike Maroney.
Thank you, David. I appreciate that introduction and invitation. So David asked me to come and kind of give you a little bit of a overview about education and workforce alignment and what we've seen over the last several years. It's nice to see a couple of friendly faces in the crowd. Commissioner Alvarez from Workforce Commission, nice to see you, sir. CJ from IEC, and Lorraine and Jeff from the home builders, and of course my friends at ABC, Mark Roach, and we worked with a lot of these folks for several years in kind of one big effort, and I'll kind of go through that briefly.
Hey, Mike, if I could interject real quick.
Please.
You guys need to listen closely to this. This is the guru of how to get the skilled trades education process in front of the high school kids. This is the man right here.
Well,
Mr. Roach, this is Bryan Francis. We'll see about that after this. We're going to put Maroney to the test.
So, David gave me a good introduction. I have been lobbying in Texas since 2000. For the most part, my early career, 2000 to 2010, was exclusive within chemicals, Huntsman Corporation, BASF Corporation, and Texas Chemical Council. Since 2009, when I left Huntsman, I've branched out and done a lot of other work. My wife is an insurance person, so now we have insurance clients, and but this is my passion, and workforce development was always a big key to what we were talking about. And so really, maybe even before 2006 and 2007, we started hearing from our clients about the problem about lack of skilled trades, just across the board. Technicians, welders, pipe fitters, electricians. And so, and we started to talk about policies and started examining policies at the state when the crash happened. 2008, early 2009, big recession, and there, quite frankly, this is pre-shale gas revolution. We in the chemical industry did not expect any kind of rebound, any kind of renaissance, and we stopped talking about labor in general during this time period because we were just worried that there wasn't going to be a rebound. So we really didn't talk about workforce development at the Capitol from a chemical manufacturing perspective from 2007 all the way through 2011, because the 11 session, if you recall, was the awful session on the budget, and budget just dominated every aspect of it because you're dealing with the recession and the drop and the lack of revenues that the state had. So that just sucked all the wind out of the 2011 session, even though we were still hearing from our clients that we had a problem with the skilled trades. So when we got past that awful session, we really, in 2012, really started to hear more from our clients that despite the recession and despite the downturn, we were still having a big issue. We were having far too many retirement eligible employees. We weren't seeing the pipeline, and we started looking at what is wrong with our system. And I'll try to paint in big broad brushes, but generally it's that we've de-emphasized the trades, especially in high school, over the last 30 years. We went to a one-size-fits-all kind of idea about what education is, and we really just overemphasized college preparation. That's it. And so, at least at the high school level, and now we're getting in more into higher ed and to alignment that way. So in the summer of 2012, Hector Rivero, who's the president of the Texas Chemical Council, and I started talking to other trade associations and joined and formed this Jobs for Texas coalition. The home builders were there, IEC was there, ABC, we had manufacturers, we had realtors, we had docs, we had hospitals, 22 trade associations representing 300,000 businesses and more than 6.5 million jobs. So really about half the workforce was represented just in our coalition. And our major push for that session, going into that session, 2013, was trying to work on allowing more flexibility in high school curriculum and coursework to allow for more career and tech education, more vocational exploration, and we lucked out with one big thing, and that was we met the Mad Moms. Do y'all remember the Mad Moms who were so fed up with the over-testing, with this reliance of high-stakes testing, quite frankly? And so the Mad Moms, the school boards, the superintendents, we started meeting with those guys in the fall of 2012 in the lead up to the 13 and started seeing some real synergies between all of our groups. And our business coalition, Jobs for Texas, wasn't complete. We didn't have TAB, the Texas Association of Business. They were opposed to what we were talking about. We didn't have the Austin Chamber. They were opposed to what we were talking about. And so there was a real uphill fight because our business groups at this Capitol were split. So we went into the 2013 session. We were all of those groups, the Mad Moms, the school boards, the superintendents, us. We were all going after separate pieces of legislation. And the bill that became House Bill 5 was a conglomeration of all of it because they saw this ability to take all of our concerns and throw it in one big bill. And Jimmy Don Aycock was masterful in how he worked the system and pulled all the great ideas from all these disparate groups into one big piece of legislation, landmark legislation. From our perspective, it better aligns education and the workforce. It removed the 4x4 recommended requirement, which was that you had to, in high school, take 4 years of math, 4 years of English, 4 years of science, 4 years of social studies. What we were finding out from our superintendents and our principals and our teachers and all of our school folks is that students' schedules were overscheduled and they didn't have enough flexibility. So we thought, and we didn't argue against lower rigor or lower standards. We were arguing for more flexibility to match up the education system with our workforce needs. I thought one of the genius things that H.D. Chambers, the superintendent from A-Leaf, came up with was these endorsements. STEM, so science, technology, engineering, math, business and industry, arts and humanities, public service or public health and public service, and then a multidisciplinary. And so you can do college prep, like traditional college prep, through any of them. You can do STEM and go into engineering. You can do multidisciplinary and go into any of the liberal arts. You can do business industry and go into marketing or advertising. And so the House Bill 5, I think that one of the key things was to put these endorsements in place and to allow school districts to then begin offering coursework that meets the needs of their local workforce, but also meets the interests of students. Students have to pick an endorsement going into 9th grade. So it's very important going forward that we have great advising in 7th and 8th grade. You can opt out of an endorsement, but only after 10th grade and only after you have the sign-off from your parents, your teachers, and your administrators. So it's very important, and I think we're probably at like 97% of students right now are on the endorsements. So it's very, very good. I'll have to check that number with TEA, but I think that's right. Again, our push was more flexibility for electives, for CTE, for project-based learning, to allow more relevance while maintaining rigor. And the other thing that we had envisioned was that we need to put a good foundation at the state level, but allow for innovation and collaboration and cooperation at the local levels, so that what happens in Houston and what happens in Freeport, what happens in Odessa, are all based on what they need in their communities. We passed it unanimously. Shocking. I really was shocked that we did pass it unanimously, but it was very hard to argue against it. And we sweated it and lobbied Governor Perry very, very hard for weeks because there was a concern that he was going to veto the bill, because it, as our detractors claimed, was going to dumb down education. And I'll get to some missed facts here in just a second. But after the bill passed, I took the month of June and July off and basically just went to the beach, and then started immediately on the return working with the Texas Education Agency and the State Board of Education on their implementation of rulemaking, because not every aspect of the bill was you must do this, SBOE. SBOE did have some, I thought I blacked out for a second there. SBOE did have some discretion on how they implemented the rules. So they began a work session in late summer of 13. They had first and second readings in September and November of 13, and they did a final approval in January of 14. We were very heavily involved in that entire god-awful process. If you want to watch paint dry, that's a much better thing than going to SBOE meetings. And the other thing, I also do a little bit of educator prep work, and even worse is State Board for Educator Certification. That is awful work. Don't do it. If you're a lobbyist, don't do it. Okay, as soon as after we finished rulemaking, we in the chemical industry especially knew that we needed to go and do some serious education and some serious evangelizing about the bill, and really heading off our detractors at the pass so that they couldn't come back in the next session and start chipping away at our successes. So we put together workforce and education symposiums all across the state. Houston, Brazosport, Golden Triangle, Longview, Central Texas, DFW, Energy Corridor. I was as the kind of organizer of the Workforce Coalition, the Jobs for Texas Coalition, worked with ISDs, the Education Service Centers. We held all of them in either community college campuses or technical school campuses, so because we wanted that to be the focus, that students in high school can go. They can find success not just in a traditional university or college track, right? So here's my missed facts. We heard from our detractors that we had dumbed down education, we'd lowered expectations. Absolutely not. We maintained high rigor, and we allowed for more course flexibility. We heard this one, that forcing 8th graders to make crucial life decisions is wrong. That's BS. It's endorsements are for exploring interests and talents alone. It doesn't put you in any one particular track or not. In fact, you can go to a Texas university or any university by earning any of the endorsements. One guy said that the endorsement idea is flawed and it implies some sort of expertise. We're trying to give students a little bit of a head start on something they might be interested in. That's what it's about. And then they charge that students are going to take the easier path, that they would take the foundation plan without endorsements and not the distinguished plan. Well, I just told you a second ago, 97% of students in the state are on an endorsement. And in fact, most school districts choose the distinguished plan as their default, and you have to choose something other than the distinguished plan. So a distinguished plan means that you've got the foundation diploma, you've got an endorsement on top of it, and then you've got a distinguished endorsement on top of it, where you have to take Algebra 2, you have to take extra electives, you have to take college-ready courses and that kind of stuff. So like the city, Austin ISD, they have the distinguished plan as the default plan that students have to then choose to do otherwise. Stop me if you've got questions, please. So fast forward to the 2015 session, we were in high defense mode on House Bill 5. The Jobs for Texas Coalition was actually a borrowed entity from the Civil Justice League that they'd used over the years on kind of labor issues. I think it was workers' comp or something. So we formed a new loose, broad-based coalition called the Texas Workforce Coalition. It's not actually an entity, it's just a group of us that get together 3 or 4 times a year, and I help advise all the members of that coalition about education, public education matters, higher education matters, and workforce development matters, and how it all aligns together. So in that session, we lifted the cap on dual credit for all students. Huge win for students, huge win for industry and for school districts all across the state. I'll get back to dual credit in a second. They directed the TEA to come up with a 7th or 8th grade semester course on career and college exploration. So this will be real important going forward, that this course is given to all these 7th and 8th graders so that they can make an informed decision about what their endorsement is and what kind of courses work they want to take in high school. There was a bill, again, Jimmy Don Aycock, on trying to better train counselors. And I think y'all have all heard the horror stories over the years about how many students. There's like 500 students for every counselor in this state. And counselors are increasingly being asked to do, back before House Bill 5 passed, they were asked to do test administration, all the STAR tests, all those kinds of things. But a lot of what the job of counselors now is social, emotional, and dealing with abused kids who are being, in bad homes. It's not about advising kids about their future or what courses to take or where they're going to go to school or what they're going to do for a job. It's all that social, emotional stuff that's just killing their time. So we need to do a better job. We need to either get specific advisors in schools to help supplement counselors, or we need to train counselors better for advising. And that's going through. In fact, I'm on this advisory committee, Texas On Course. They sent money to UT Austin to develop like a micro credentialing product for counselors to take and learn and to get better information about how to advise students about their future, college, career, military, whatever. We also moved the JET program from the Comptroller's Office to the Workforce Commission. The JET program is the Jobs and Education for Texans group, and it's basically, can we send money to community colleges for equipment to help them come up with better programs to meet the needs of their workforce. So it's a capacity building fund for community colleges. Also in 2015, the Higher Ed Coordinating Board, that's the group that kind of oversees all the colleges, universities, all higher ed in the state, they began updating their strategic plan, which became 60 by 30. And it's pretty simple. It's by 2030, which, folks, that's 12 years from now. 2030, we want 60% of our workforce to have a degree or a certification. Right now, we're somewhere around 37, 38%, so we got a long way to go. By 2030, they want to have at least 550,000 completions that year of degrees or certifications. I don't know what the number is right now. By 2030, if you get a degree from a college or university in Texas, that degree must have identified marketable skills. That seems a little nebulous to me, but we'll work with them. And then they want undergrad student loan debt to not exceed 60% of the first year wages for Texas grads. I don't know what the number is right now, but that seems really difficult. And obviously student debt is a huge part of this discussion, and part of what we all need to be talking about is that a lot of the skilled trades, you're not going to go load up hundreds of thousands of dollars in debt to get prepared for the future. Fast forward to the 2017 session, there was an idea floated by Lieutenant Governor Patrick to do PTech, that's Pathways to Technology. It's an IBM idea that started in New York State. And the idea is that you start students in 9th grade and they go all the way through 14th grade, and they get both a high school diploma and a 2-year associate's degree, and you earn certifications along the way. And what we basically had to do was change some statutes in the law to allow it, and so we've authorized it. So now it won't be something that every school district would even consider, but there may be a few school districts and community colleges who might partner together and implement this PTech model. And in fact, they authorized some money to go to it, and TEA is going to this spring put out an RFP to school districts and to colleges and say, you want to compete for this money, put in an application. So that's coming. And there's also a PTech advisory committee that is going to start meeting here soon. We had a course sequencing fix for House Bill 5 that was an unintended, but the way we wrote the bill back in 13, we saw a problem with both English language arts and mathematics. We fixed that. We're doing a comprehensive interim study on dual credit. And here, I don't know if anybody saw the Austin American Statesman this morning. Commissioner Paredes did a presser yesterday with a bunch of reporters, and he is sounding the alarm bells on dual credit. He thinks it's been expanded too quickly. He doesn't think that most of the students who are taking dual credit are college ready. And part of what frustrates me with Commissioner Paredes is, and I've said this to him and say it often and publicly, is that I think that academic dual credit and CTE dual credit get conflated. And he does nothing to explicitly unconflate. He just throws a big wet blanket on dual credit all over, and I think we in business suffer because, and here's the other thing. If students aren't ready to take dual credit, that's on both the school teaching it, but the college teaching it. Now, I understand that this could be a cash cow and that the schools and the community colleges and universities are looking at it as revenue enhancement. But, and that is certainly a concern, but it's an important, I think dual credit is a very important part of the equation that we're talking about here. Dual credit, by definition, is a college level course, period, that you also get credit in high school and college for. And there's a dozen different ways that it's being taught in schools these days. And again, what Houston Community College is doing and versus Austin Community College is doing versus the University of Texas, they're all doing a little bit differently. And to me, it's like the innovation incubators all across the state. And I'm frustrated that we keep talking about dual credit is growing too fast, and it's going to be a big problem. Just my humble opinion. We had a community college funding fix. There was a silly rule that the Higher Ed Coordinating Board ruled on where students who are 16 and 17 who are trying to take like courses to get them ready for life, the community colleges couldn't draw down their formula dollars from the state for that. Wrong decision, bad precedent. Trent Ashby ran a bill, and we fixed it. We did update the accountability system. Everybody know the accountability system where we're trying to judge school districts and their campuses on how well they're doing based on graduation rates, based on STAR testing, based on, and we're now going to be rewarding school districts for are they getting students prepared for the workforce. So through certifications, through associate's degrees. You know, in my perfect world, we're going to start seeing high school graduates graduating with both certifications and associate's degrees in the same amount of time that it just takes most people just to get a diploma. It's possible. We've got the flexibility now. We passed Recruit Texas. Carol Alvarado ran this bill both in 15 and 17. We passed it. It's basically using skills development from the Workforce Commission to rapidly get your workforce ready for a company who's trying to relocate to the state. And then I think it was Jarvis Johnson. Yeah, Jarvis Johnson had a bill where we're going to share more Workforce Commission data with students and also field-based learning opportunities, so internships, apprenticeships, which school districts have career and tech programs that are partnering with businesses. So again, we're sharing more information. That workforce data, Commissioner Alvarez, is so vital to be shared with students and advisors and their parents so that they can make informed decisions about what their future is, right? While we were in session, TEA started a project in March where they're trying to determine and identify industry-recognized certifications that are being taught in high school. And what they're wanting to do is they've put together this list of 74 certifications that you can both start and complete in high school. Now there's another probably 4,000 certifications that don't fall into that category. You can't start and finish in high school. So there's another list that's going to be developed where you can start a certification, but you must end it later in a technical school or TSTC or a community college. So why this is important is that that list right now, that 74 list, is tied to the accountability system. So a lot of schools are looking at that list and saying, well, my program's not on this list, and they're getting nervous, and that worries me. We need to be working on this second list ASAP. We got to get it up and running quick, because I'm afraid that school districts, if their CTE program doesn't fall in line with one of these industry recognized certifications, we could see pulling back from the gains that we've made from vocational and career tech education in our state. Just one of my concerns. Mariana was fantastic. I loved all the data. Thank you so much for sharing a lot of that. I quite frankly was surprised by your data about electricians' age. I would have expected the numbers to be further right, and higher, that you'd had a higher number who were in their 45 to retirement age. But Workforce Commission has been fantastic to work with. Commissioner Alvarez, Commissioner Hughes, Commissioner Alcantar, their whole staff. They are here to serve us. They have, if you don't know, they've got a fantastic employer hotline. If for legal information, you don't have to go pay a lawyer for private advice. You can call their hotline and get any kind of labor advice, and they are ready, willing, and able to serve you. They also do some publications, the economic ones, but also quarterly. They've got Texas Business Today. They do periodic business conferences. They've got a whole program focused on veterans, welcoming them to home, skills for transition, family support. Obviously, you heard a lot about the labor market and career information. They have a lot of different tools to help both students, determine what their future is, and I won't go through all of them. But then they've also got the Skills Development Fund, and that is, let's say a company needs to expand or retrain some of its employees. They'll go to the Workforce Commission and work with a local community college to deliver programs to up their skills and to retrain employees, or to focus on an area that is hard to fill, like electricians. And then, of course, JET funding. I talked about it. So in the last month or two, both the Lieutenant Governor Patrick and House Speaker Strauss have issued interim charges. These are the homework assignments that they give to legislators and say, hey, go study this, bring us recommendations for the 2019 session. So those have been issued. Some of the ones that I'm following closely is we're going to talk a lot about education funding, formulas, and allotments, both at the public side and at the higher ed side. I'm a big fan of Texas State Technical College. They are the state's technical school. They operate, I don't know how many campuses, but they're based in Waco, and they've got big satellite campuses in Marshall and Red Oak and Sugar Land. Did you all know that TSTC's funding model is based solely on their graduates' income? Let me say that again. TSTC's funding model is based solely on their graduates' 5-year rolling average of their income. So TSTC has said, we want to be accountable to what we do and what we produce. And the graduates that we send in the marketplace, we're so confident in their skills, we will base our funding on their income. So first in the state, first in the country, it really is phenomenal. What we need to make sure is that the legislature doesn't pull the rug out from them and not completely give them all the money that they need. I'll be working on that a lot in the 2018 interim and the 2019 session. Community colleges, to their credit, also have some accountability built in. They've got success point funding. And so I think it's about 12 or 13% of their budgets are based upon their graduates completing a program, or their graduates transferring to a university, or their graduates and there's a couple of success points, and every time their students meet those success points, then they get extra dollars. Makes perfect sense, right? We're trying to increase outcomes here, but again, it's only less than 15% of their budgets. The universities don't have any accountability, basically, except for themselves and to their accrediting body. I will say, though, it's really important to emphasize that universities also have a research function, and they have other functions than just workforce preparation. That's an important function, but universities have other aspects, and we need to recognize that. We're going to be looking at the dual credit specifically. Again, Commissioner Paredes' comments concern me, but they've always concerned me. We're going to be talking about credit transferability. So if you're a student and you take courses at Lamar Institute of Technology, and you want to one day transfer to the University of Texas at Austin, there's some problems. And Austin Community College and UT Austin have a pretty good working relationship, and most people who go to ACC know what they need to do to make sure that their credits transfer to the university. Those articulation agreements are scattered, and usually it's happening regionally. So we probably need to take a look at, are there barriers for articulation agreements? They're going to have a statewide plan review of 60 by 30. So we'll be hearing from the Commissioner Paredes about where we stand, what's the update, how close are we to starting to make some progress towards those goals that I outlined. And I've talked to other folks in my profession, and we really, I think everybody's worried that Hurricane Harvey will just completely suck all the oxygen out of the room in this next interim and next session, and that it's going to dominate the conversation, and probably with good reason. And for those of us who are trying to get other little tweaks done, it'll be a challenge. And there's one final thing. When I was talking about accountability, how do you judge a school district? How do you judge a campus? There's a new metric that's called college, career, and military readiness. And so it includes things like, how did you do on an AP test? Or how did you do on SAT or ACT? Typical things like that. Did you graduate from high school? Did you earn a certification? Did you earn an associate's degree? Those are all very good indications that a student is college, career, military ready. I'm talking to everybody, builders, IEC, ABC, all of our groups, any NCEA, we all need to hammer the Commissioner of Education, Mike Morath, to include coherent sequences of career and tech education. A coherent sequence is basically that you're taking a course starting in 9th grade that leads to a course in 10th grade, that leads to a course in 11th grade, that leads to a course in 12th grade. It's in a coherent sequence. It's a field of study. And right now, until we get that certification list updated that I talked about earlier, it's real important that we allow all CTE coherent sequences to be counted in this CCMR indicator. So I've got a letter if anybody wants to take a copy of it, and you can fashion it yourself and send it off to Morath. But he needs to hear from the business community that it's an important aspect of the accountability system. I'm almost done.
You're good on time.
So we've always talked about this big, broad issue that it's a policy problem and it's a perception problem, right? The policy stuff, we've made some great gains. House Bill 5, some of the legislation we've passed over the last couple of sessions. We're going to continue to tweak those types of changes at the legislature and at SBOE and at TEA and at Higher Ed Coordinating Board, and we're going to continue to work with the commission, the Workforce Commission. But ultimately, the big problem here is perception. We spent 30-plus years de-emphasizing the trades, de-emphasizing vocational education in high schools, and trying to send everybody to college and one size fits all. And it didn't take overnight for that to happen. It's not going to take overnight for the perception gap to close on the other side. I threw this slide in just because this is the skills gap. You know, these are the jobs, the number of available workers. Jobs, number of available workers. Jobs, number. So low skill, middle skill, high skill. We've got, quite frankly, enough workers in the high skill jobs. We've got way too many workers in the low skill jobs, and it's those middle skills where we have more jobs than we have people. So we need to retrain folks. We need to send them closer, down the road sooner. So I know that the Workforce Commission has been last year, Commissioner Alvarez, has been working on a statewide branding campaign, a kind of got milk, if you will, campaign for emphasizing careers that maybe don't necessarily require a 4-year degree and do need skills training. So we've been working with the commission on that effort. I think we're actually in RFP phases, right, Commissioner? Close to it. Close to it, okay. We've got to leverage industry events and awareness through, continued collaboration, cooperation. We need to look at, Manufacturing Day or Builders Day and that kind of stuff, and get young people more involved in that kind of stuff. Perception changes have to begin in elementary school. They've got to evolve in middle school. They've got to mature in high school, and we've got to thrive in work-based learning environments. Problem-based learning, project-based learning in high schools, apprenticeships, internships. That is where we're going to make inroads. And I put this last line on here: students, parents, I think, are actually probably the number one target audience for what we're talking about here. I've got a college degree, and I'm not bad-mouthing college degrees because I've got a 4-year one. I've got a 10-year-old boy and an 11-year-old boy, sons, and I promise you, they're probably both going to get encouraged to go be a plumber and an electrician or a welder, and then if they want to go back to college, they certainly can. I'm huge on let's build skills that are never going to go out of style, and then if you want to enhance your education, you should do that as well. So, opportunities for progress. Success, what I've seen is success happens when one of two things happens. You have an innovative, committed superintendent and staff at a school district who care about this stuff and have a realistic vision for their students and want to provide opportunities for all of them. And or employers who are engaged in ISDs and colleges. It really helps when both happen. And I've said this before, I'll say it again, I'm absolutely committed to this. Cooperation and collaboration happens locally. Community by community, taking a look at your industries, your partners, your employers, meeting their workforce needs, and trying to meet the needs of students. Students are the if you think about the manufacturing analogy, they're the product. You are the consumers. We need to build better products. And I mentioned this also. Several of your associations were involved in this effort. Back in 2015, I got hired by the Construction Association, ABC, IEC, the Mechanical Contractor Association, NECA, the Plumbing, Heating, Cooling guys, the Air Conditioner guys, and the Structural Steel Institute. And we wrote, it's called the Blueprint, a guidebook for strategic outreach to the education community for the construction industries of Texas. And the blueprint itself is 20 pages long, and then I have an appendix 1 on toolkit. It's like a specific toolkit of, you could take this toolkit and go talk to your high school or talk to your college and implement these ideas. And then I had some case studies as well where I thought things were working well. I'll make this available and send this to you guys. You can post this as well. I mean, it's copyrighted. I copyrighted it for my clients, but like IEC and ABC, you guys, we deliver this to you guys, and anyone can use these ideas to go and collaborate, cooperate in high schools and in colleges around the state to try to boost your sector. Here's my contact information, and I'm available to answer questions. Send me an email, text me. Who's got questions?
I'll be glad to start off with the questions,
And
Mr. Maroney.
did I go way too long?
Oh, no, you did perfect. You were right on cue. I was not trying to rush you at all. I just wanted to make sure. I had to take care of some business behind the scenes there, and I wanted to make sure I was there for the lights. You brought up during your presentation about TSTC. In fact, you touted what they've accomplished and how they base their funding mechanism. Is there a resource that you're aware of where the accountability for apprenticeship programs is posted, graduation rates and investment for your first year of earnings versus the investment you're going to be making? Is there one-stop shopping either on TWC, the Texas Workforce Investment? Is there a one-stop shop where people can do those comparisons so they can, the parents, which I thought was very important to have bolded in your presentation, can do that?
So I think what you're asking is probably all of those things together. No, Department of Labor's got information, Workforce Commission's got information. But I do, Commissioner, correct me if I'm wrong, but that the Workforce Commission is trying to overhaul their consumer products. Is that right? Is that the right? So like if a student could go on and do reality check, I think they're trying to overhaul everything, their outward-facing information about job postings and what it would take to get this job and where are the programs. And part of that is also the legislation we just passed, which is share more Workforce Commission data with school districts and teachers and advisors and parents and students. And so I think that's all a little bit of a work in progress and something we've actually contemplated in 2013 with House Bill 5. We wanted to try and direct this data gathering to be more outward looking and share, because knowledge is power, right?
Absolutely. The other part, and it was at the end of your presentation, employers engage is so powerful because it's going to take that parent's education and knowledge is power, and the employer's engagement in order for this to come together.
Yeah, and I mean, we're all running businesses. You're trying to meet payroll. You're trying to recruit. You're trying to get that next job, and you're trying to then scramble around to find all the resources to do the job. But I think businesses have to set aside a certain amount of time and resources and money to make this a priority, because we've made great policy gains. We still have perception challenges. Businesses, industry, sectors have to step up and be part of the conversation. That's just my opinion.
A challenge to the group here, David Gonzalez with TDLR, a challenge to the group. I've got questions that I'm going to be bringing up as part of the brainstorming. Some of the things we discussed here may be good fodder for new questions that I don't have written down that we may need to come up with to put out to the group. I turn over the mic to anybody that's wanting to speak up, advisory board members or the public.
Yeah, Mark Roach. I've watched Mike since the beginning of all this. This is pre-House Bill 5. He's mentioned ABC. I'm on the state board. We've watched this thing evolve. And it was a curious observation that Mike helped us realize at the inception of this thing. If I could, Bryan, can I ask for a show of hands in the room here on a
Absolutely.
question?
Now, they may not raise them.
They may not raise them, I understand that.
We are still
like
in
this
Texas.
junior high group
We're
that's sitting
still
in
in
the back here.
Texas now, you know,
Right.
we got independent thinkers here now.
Raise your hand if you vote in school board elections. I'm not asking you if you went and voted, but at least you're aware that you can vote in a school board election. It was Mike that brought this to our attention. He brought in two very extremely important points, was the innovative school district, okay, and the engaged employer. We're in the business of turning conception into reality, are we not? Somebody thinks up a building or a project, and they come out with a set of plans. That's a conception. And then they hand it off to the guys, us in the trade, who make it a reality, right? And they have developed the conception. Unfortunately, Texas, largest state in the country, how many school districts?
Well, you got 254 counties, but
Bazillion?
1,000 school districts.
Right. So it's an impossible task. We can't sit back. We realized this a long time. We cannot sit back and let guys like Mike and his group do the driving for us. If we have the wherewithal to go down and vote for a school board member, okay, then we have the wherewithal that if the school board member does not do what we need for them to do in our school, okay, as far as educating the kids, total education, then we need to step up. Put the pressure on the school districts, and if you got to, take a seat. Be a part of the solution.
Well, and
Make sense?
I'll go another step forward. Run for school board.
Exactly.
Run for state legislature. If you're not going to do that, at least participate in the process.
Right.
Give campaign. Go talk to people and find out what their values are, and if you agree with them, give them money.
I'm going to go out on a limb and say that probably there's a percentage of innovative superintendents out there. The rest of them got drug into it kicking and screaming maybe, but they got drug into it from the pressure that was applied by the industry. It's that simple.
Yeah. And to that point, the H.D. Chambers of A-Leaf ISD, who's the most innovative superintendent, I think, in the state, are the rare exception. To be a superintendent, you've got to be in academia. You have to have been a certified teacher, you have to have been a certified principal, and you have to have gotten a certification for superintendent. And to do any of those, you've got to have a 4-year degree and oftentimes a master's degree. And so you're talking to people who are specifically in academia. That is their business. And so, and at the community college level too. So it's no surprise to me that so many school districts don't get it and have to be beat over the head to meet the needs of their employers, which really should be the whole point of what education's about. Yes, we want to impart good skills. Yes, we want to have good soft skills. Yes, we want to have well-rounded whole people, and it's to fill these jobs.
Right. And I think, Mike, you correct me if I'm wrong, the directions school districts take are based on the policy set by the school board.
Correct.
Now, superintendents can have a degree of suggestion and whatnot, but, and unfortunately, in a lot of cases, the tail wags the dog in that superintendents push the school board around, but it's the school board who ultimately has the driving power to tell the school district, look, we know you've been doing things this way, but here's how we're going to do them from here on out.
Well, and they're the ones accountable to the electorate.
Exactly.
They're the ones who hear from you all as the voters and who take their direction. And if they don't know that it's a priority, they're not going to make it a priority.
Chairman Bell, are you still a school board member or previous?
Yes, sir, 20 years.
20 years as school
Yes,
board
sir.
member.
Thank you for your service.
Would you say, is it a fair assessment to say that you as a school board member, if you had the right folks in the audience with the right message, they can sure get the school board's attention?
And I would agree. We have this already in Forney, a coalition between the IEC, Independent Electrical Contractors, Dallas County Community College District, and then obviously I'm on the school board. I'm the president of Forney ISD, and we have an innovative district and a superintendent. and they grasp a hold of the CAT, and I want to give Mike all the credit here. He carried this torch along with the industries that got on board with you on the front end, including us, and so Mike has moved the needle, and Jimmy Don Acock, that was just incredible what has done, because you're exactly correct. I'm a product of industrial cooperative training, graduate of 1980, Mesquite High School, and we had it for all the trades. We have steered away and herded everybody to higher education for decades, and we've created a workforce disconnect, development disconnect. And it's just not sexy to be an electrician or a plumber, or, I mean, that's just the perception. Once again, we've got to change that. But in Forney, you know, we recognize the need for the CAT. You had to get the opportunity through House Bill 5. Then that tennis ball has to go through the snake of the SBOE and the TEA, and then back to the district to build a bridge for those CATE courses with the TEA to be able to get the credit. You know, we just started our program, though it took a couple of years for this. It started the fall of 17, where we have electrical technical program, and it splits with the endorsements. You can be an engineer or you can be a contractor, and that splits as a junior in high school. But you also had to have the internships by the local electrical contractor, so somebody gets paid to learn, or they're not interested in doing this. And with the dual credit opportunities, we now have dual credit for this electrical class. Curriculum's furnished by the IEC. All the tools, equipment, materials furnished by industry. It at no cost to the district other than the educator. And so, but what you'll see is that these kiddos got in this in the fall of 17. We won't have a bona fide employee to hopefully hire and to finish this apprenticeship program until 2021. So, I mean, it takes some time for all this to have occurred. Matter of fact, I was talking to Commissioner Alvarez before the meeting started, it's about a decade from the time we started talking about this in the legislature till you turn out the first apprentice into these trades. And so it was too late, but man, we are moving the needle, and it's happening. And you're right, the collaboration that has to occur between business, industry, the associations, the superintendents, and you're right, Mr. Roach, the school board just needs to set the goals that CAT is going to be part and parcel of your local program. And once that goal's set, the superintendent has to meet the goals set by the board. That's part of the superintendent evaluation in every school district. It's promulgated by the legislature and the commissioner of education. So once those are set in motion, absolutely, that's going to occur. And so I think you're going to see more and more of that happen over time. So I applaud you for your efforts of carrying this torch and helping us get this done. Thanks, Mike.
Well, thank you. You make a great point. I mean, this is a long game. I mean, if you're going to affect change, like I said earlier, we didn't get here overnight, and we're not going to change it overnight. Everybody needs to roll their sleeves up and make progress. And again, it's like that pushing a football down the field. You got to get it 3 yards at a time, right?
Hi, good morning, Mike.
Hey.
I want to thank you very much for the presentation and the work that you did. I started my career in higher education as an administrator, have a master's in higher education, and have now found myself in workforce development and really enjoy that. And I heard in your presentation a lot about K through 12 and higher education, and I know that we're serving individuals at the workforce development agency I'm at that I don't think the higher education model really fits right now. And I'm curious what your thoughts are about how workforce development agencies fit into this equation as well.
Yeah, I should have talked about workforce solutions around the state, and obviously they're doing yeoman's work at the local level, working with employers, trying to determine their needs, try to help put programs in place. You've got your group, the Skill Point Alliance. Your reputation precedes you, and so you're a huge part of the big puzzle. And obviously, you're the local agency working with the TWC, and so, quite frankly, I don't deal a whole lot with local workforce development stuff because there's not a big policy issue that we're dealing with at the legislature about it. Again, you know, my work is are there barriers? Can we either go around them or go over them? How can we remove these barriers from a state policy perspective to help locally what needs to get done? And so I just, quite frankly, hadn't heard a whole lot of problems in your arena.
Well, thank you for your thoughts.
Absolutely.
Mike, John Sparrow, thanks for your presentation. I think part of some of the questions I've got are how, I guess basically it's towards the implementation of all the hard work that's been done in the legislature. So the vocational, opportunities are there, but how do we get them out to the high schools? How do we educate the folks who are, running the high schools and the school districts? How do we find the qualified people who will go out there and teach the classes? We're sitting here, this is obviously the electrical industry. I would dare say, if you do plumbing or HVAC, people are a little more willing to do that than the electrical, just because of the safety aspects that, surrounding the electrical industry. It's kind of a pretty cut and dry thing if you get it wrong, in the electrical industry. So how do we get the educators to, accept, these vocational training courses? How do we get them to understand that, or go out and hire qualified people who can teach it? I think that's probably the biggest challenge. The work's done, the availability to offer the courses is there, but how do we implement? And maybe Chairman Bell can speak to this. It sounds like he's got something in his school district that is going in the right direction.
Before you answer that, Mike, can I just kind of add on to it? Because I know, I think I got a excellent understanding of what he's talking about. You take the district to implement the programs. So who's going to teach them? A school teacher with a liberal arts degree from whatever is going to take over, get assigned to that class. The teacher becomes somebody that's come out of the field, maybe set the time aside or left the industry to teach, to help with this process. Nevertheless, doesn't come in with an education degree or certification. There's already been an instance, Chairman Bell, I think, in the state here where there was a bit of an uprising over the fact that teachers were being brought in to teach the technical that weren't certified teachers, and they took exception. The teachers took exception to the fact that a non-certified teacher was teaching the kids. Am I correct?
Yeah. So let me address this because I'm intimately aware of this situation. To become a teacher in the state of Texas, you have to either go through a traditional teaching college at a university, or a alternative certification program, which is outside of a university, or you can get certified in another state. If you're in the teaching college corridor, then typically you're getting your college degree along with the teaching. So you're learning, and maybe you want to be a math teacher, so you're getting a math emphasis and you're getting a teaching degree, and you go and you get certified through that route. Alternative certification is relatively new and has been around for about 25 years, and it's primarily designed to take career changers, people who have done something else in their career, and turn them into teachers and put them through a rigorous course, give them training, give them classroom management skills, give them pedagogy skills, and so that's. But you have to have a 4-year college degree to get into a alt-cert program, and then of course if it's out of state, then that has to mirror what Texas's rules are. So there's already a barrier to entry, right? So back in 15, Matt Schaefer out of Tyler passed a bill that was trying to work on this issue, and it was that that school districts could issue what's called a school district teaching permit, only good for that school district to teach these types of courses, trades and industrial courses. It set aside a minimum number of hours that you needed for classroom management and for pedagogy training, and it is an option for school districts who are in dire need to find somebody to teach a trades and industrial course, welding, auto mechanics, maybe electrician. I mean, it's a very limited option, but it's still out there. And then this last session worked on a bill that directed the State Board for Educator Certification to come up with a trades and industrial teaching certification, right? An abbreviated one. So if you're taking somebody who's worked in an auto shop for 25 years and you want to put them in a classroom, then you put them through this abbreviated, quick, mostly tied to classroom management, pedagogy, how to teach, how to not have your kids run all over you kind of stuff. Because they know what they're doing with the mechanics of it. They maybe not just don't know exactly how to teach it. So that's the idea. So right now, State Board for Educator Certification is going through their rulemaking process to put that piece of legislation in place. So we're going to soon have a certification just for trades and industrials. And it will have it's an alt-cert program, so it will be an abbreviated, don't exactly know what the number of hours. So right now, if you go through an alt-cert program, before you step foot in the classroom, you have to take 300 hours of classroom management, pedagogy, classroom training, all that stuff. Right now, the draft rule is at 200. So we've at least removed part of a barrier, right? To the overall question, I hear this all the time. We're having a hard enough time filling jobs, much less filling jobs to teach these courses, right? So I think there's probably got to be, at some point going forward, a concerted effort by the state, by industry, to try to increase the number of people who are doing these teaching jobs. I don't know what that looks like. I haven't really given it a whole lot of thought, but I know that is one of the barriers out there to getting done what we need to get done, is to have enough trained, certified teachers to teach the courses that we're most interested in getting taught.
Can I add that, Keith Bell with the advisory board? What we're seeing happening is there's a CATE certification already, if you've got a 4-year degree. So what you're having is people that are either physics certified, teaching these kind of technical classes, or they're CATE certified, which means they probably had a business degree, is their 4-year underlining, which typically used to be your accounting classes and those kind of things that you would see.
Finance, marketing.
Finance, exactly, in these CATE programs in high schools. The problem that you have, especially if you have a smaller district, and there's a little over 1,100 school districts in the state of Texas, if you've only got 10 kids or 12 kids that are interested in being electricians, or maybe it's just 12 or 15 kids that just want to be in the skilled trades, now all of a sudden you've just got a building trades class that's not specifically plumbing or electrical or air conditioning. And so it is incumbent upon the industries and those associations to assist those educators with the curriculum, because they may not have that skill set. And from a funding standpoint, the school districts, you talked about it, the 2018 interim session, funding is going to be a problem. The Supreme Court said it was not unconstitutional, it's just broke. And so we're going to have to do something. And so these districts, in trying to be frugal with their money are not going to justify hiring somebody to teach 10 or 12 kids when average class size is 22. or
And
30.
let me address this. I think this is one of the big limitations, especially in rural Texas, maybe even in bedroom communities. And this is where we probably need to start to get really creative in how we solve this problem. And by that I mean, I'll give an example. In East Williamson County, Hutto, Thrall, Thorndale, Taylor, there's a CTE co-op. And all of those little bitty school districts all pay into this co-op, and they provide classes at one campus, and everybody gets bused from those 5 districts, gets bused to that one campus. And then there's another program at another campus, and all those kids want to go there, get bused there. And to me, it's genius because you get to share costs. If you're concerned about numbers of kids who are in the program, then you partner with your neighbors. TSTC is providing the training, and so that's the kind of. It's not just school district by school district. It's regionally. It's working with your neighbors, and part of the problem is not necessarily CTE funding or CATE funding, which is, for those of you who don't know, regular courses get paid a certain rate, and CTE courses get paid a higher rate because you've got more costs, especially equipment. But you also have a transportation allotment, right? And none of those allotments have been. You graduated in '80, Keith?
1980, yes, sir.
All the allotments haven't been updated since you graduated high school. That's part of the big problem that we're talking about, is that we're dealing with a not up-to-date system in funding models. So transportation has to be a consideration when we're talking about sharing and costs and that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I'm glad you both of you guys, Mark Roach, Chairman Bell, and Mike, I'm glad you both addressed that. It's a real life example in Corpus Christi. ABC, we created a craft training program back in the late 80s that was geared predominantly to adults. And a lot of it was after work. It was in evening classes, that kind of stuff. We now have a multi-million-dollar campus, separated buildings so we can separate adults and kids. And we went to approach the school districts. Let me tell you something. That you want to go talk to a school administrator, that's the first thing they're going to hit you with. Hey, it's a great idea, but we don't have the money for it. So our response to them was, do you have a bus? Do you have a school bus? Everybody knows they got bazillions of them, right? Get your school bus fired up, load your kids up, and bring them to our campus. We have school buses, yellow school buses, like we never thought we would ever have during the day. So our adults, and the adults that we have in our training programs, we built a separate building for them because in the education system you can't mix the kids and the adults. So we have.
And Mark, you've got what, 16 or 17 school districts that are driving to that
at least
to that campus.
Yeah. It's amazing. It's amazing to see. So that's, we gripe to our school district. We got to have a solution too. So, and I didn't realize they had the co-ops. That is an exceptional idea that they came up with.
So I mentioned the blueprint, and it's the step-by-step how to engage. The case studies part that I mentioned, one of the articles is your campus, Craft Training Center down in the Coastal Bend. One of them is this East Williamson County thing. One of them is the electrician program in Beaumont, apprentice program. So there's, and again, I'll get you that stuff, and we can put it on the website. And y'all can go read it at your leisure and put you to sleep at night. But it looks like my time is. Oh, he's got one
Can
more.
I have one more? Gary Strauss with the advisory board. Mike, I was wanting you to tie something together for me. One of your slides had parents listed as people that have to buy in, and it was in bold, as a matter of fact, correct? correct?
And italicized.
Yes, sir. So, from the previous presentation, it said that the average wage in Texas was $47,000 a year for all industries and jobs combined, $47,000. The average wage for an electrician was $46,000. So, as looking at the parents, are they going to be pushing their children to go something and just be average? Most parents aren't. And what kind of what kind of people are you attracting when the wages are below average? Do y'all look at that when you discuss with the other construction organizations and things? Do y'all look at that?
I'll be 100% honest and say that throughout this entire process of fixing policy and working on perception, wages almost never even is talked about. It's just about supply and demand for me, and to me, wages is a component of supply and demand. So I'll give it some thought, but I don't think it's going to change my mind much from a policy perspective. Now, from a realist perspective, I get your question. It makes perfect sense, total sense, but what you're describing, the 47,000 number, is everyone. That also includes the CEO is pulling down $3 million a year, right? So the curve, I mean, to me, the better maybe comparison is what we need to be talking about ROI, return on investment for your education. At every level, at especially, but most especially at the higher ed level. So, what does a technical school cost, and what is your upside for that training versus a 4-year college, and what's the upside for that? And you have to include in there student debt. So, that to me, quite frankly, the average age of an electrician versus the average age of state. It doesn't mean a whole lot to me. What we should be interjecting and we should be talking about at the high school level and at college level and every level is, what is my return on investment as me as a student, and what is it going to take for me to get trained up and ready to be in this job, and then what's my earning potential after that? That's, I think, what we need to be talking about.
And does the general public look at construction jobs as just being a job, or do they look at it as being a profession? I want them to look at it as being a profession.
I think
that
we all
we're
do.
professionals.
Because they are, and it's not. I mean, I deal with this. One of my clients is the Texas Association of Manufacturers, and a lot of people's perception about manufacturing is the blue collar, dirty shop floor, right? That ain't the case. It is high tech. It is robotics. I mean, it is. So again, I said this in my presentation, our perception gap is still wide.
So I think just having high wages and high benefits is going to attract more people to the industry.
There's no doubt about that.
Yes, sir.
And
Thank you.
And certainly there's, again, I'm trying to be a little agnostic about this, and I see that my time's up, but I try not to get in between employers and especially unions, but employers and employees on wages stuff. To me, that's something that you negotiate. That the market will dictate what is going to happen on wages. And if you've got a severe shortage, then you're going to get higher wages to get those people in. That's just economics 101.
Yes, sir.
We'll ask our economist over here. Is that right?
Dave, can I slip one in real quick?
Last
Real quick.
one, Mark.
It's a test. Last one. Okay. Gary makes a great point. Mark Roach, a great point. You look at if for the folks, the moms, the dads, whatever, looking at that wage deal. But let me expand on the perception, the stigma of job versus profession. That's up to us to change that. That's up to us, and then going out and reaching out to the kids and whatnot. But with respect to looking at it purely from a judgment based on the prevailing annual salary, under the 4x4 system, what was the dropout rate? Do you have that information? in Texas?
Prior to House Bill 5, the dropout rate was somewhere in the completion, I'll say the completion rate was, what, 72%?
He's talking about college. How many kids?
Oh,
go
No,
to
no, I'm
college?
talking about high school.
High school, okay.
I'm talking about high school.
The high school completion rate is now up to above 80, it might be approaching 90%.
Right. Point being is that, granted, you know, every kid that gets walked into the kindergarten class is going to be a lawyer, a doctor, a dentist, that kind of stuff. That's not the case. That's not reality. And so what ends up happening, they do a 4x4.
Hired gun lobbyist.
Right, right. What ends up happening is the kids they get into an education process that the easiest thing for them to do is just drop out, and that's what they were doing. That was the reality of the thing. And how many of those minds that dropped out could have been captured if we'd have diversified the program and offered them an opportunity to stay in school and finish and become those job takers instead of pursuing the profession.
And let me just say, study after study after study shows that students who take career and tech courses, even just one, graduate high school 10 points higher than those who don't.
Right.
Period. To me, it's a no-brainer.
It's the old apparent latent effect. You know, God bless him, Governor Perry. I agreed with him on a lot of things, but his 4x4, he was pounding that because he wanted Texas to look like California. And there's a bunch of us after a while said, oh, wait a minute, Governor. Well, I don't know that we need to look like California. Look at him now. But so it was a bit of a task to get him to change his mind on the 4x4 and to go to the 3x3 and get this thing in perspective. It's like, okay, Governor, the apparent effect is, he's just saying we're going to have all these great kids doing this, and the latent effect was the dropout rate. Nobody was expecting that. The number of kids that started and did not finish high school, let alone college.
Thank y'all for y'all's participation. Mike, to say you're well-versed in the subject matter would be an understatement. I will say that the fact that you had
He's the
questions... Guru, that's exactly right. The questions is what we want to see afterwards. And the fact that they're probably going to have some afterwards, I hope you can stay with us. Yeah. I do have a parting gift, a TDLR bag, and some hand sanitizer. A round of applause for Mr. Mike Mariana. We are running short on time, so I am actually going to run right into our brainstorming session. I have to do a little bit of finagling here on the computer. And so bring out your mobile phones. I want to thank the audience. We have everybody with their phones in here. Usually it's discouraged. You're asked to turn them off. Not a phone has rung one time. I want you to have your phones out. This is going to be part of the process. We have done one. I'm turning this one off. We're going to go on to the next one.
Nice seeing you, sir. Have a good one. Thanks for coming.
So the idea behind the summit is we're going to identify the factors that have caused the shortage. Now, we can continue these conversations on. The advisory board can take their information back. I have been assured that the presentations that were just provided to us have been placed on our website now on the summit link. So if you are interested in the information, you want to peruse it, you want to share it with your school district or with your parents, it's going to be up there already. And I guess we're going to get some additional information maybe from you later on as well. Appreciate that. I'm going to be posting this next question, which is the base question. We're looking to the public to tell us what has caused the shortage of qualified electricians. So I'm going to make it active right now. I'll make it a big picture so everyone can see it. There is a 30-second delay for our broadcast. So in between, I will be talking about things that I don't know a lot about. I am not an electrician. I have hired electricians. They have provided me with information. I've done some research on these matters. I have been impressed with the amount of resources that are out there, but getting them all together, distinguishing which one did, I don't know how many in the room knew there's a Texas Workforce Investment Council with the governor's office that also does studies and is supposed to help with identifying where the workforce should be in a few years and what the state of Texas needs to do in order to develop that workforce. So we got the Workforce Commission, we've got private sector, we've got all the apprenticeship, kudos, NECA, IBEW, IEC, Skill Point Alliance, all these people in a room together, we've got these great brains. We need individuals that are sharing all this information and saying, okay, we've got the ideas. Maybe it started 5 years ago. Mr. Bell's Mesquite program started many years ago. Maybe it started, but we got to finish. We've got to put it into action. So some of the responses that we have received, what has caused the shortage of qualified electricians includes schools pushing higher education. I am a product of the first one in my family to go to a four-year college, actually to graduate from college. That was the big deal. I have not been telling my kids that. If they go to college, I'm very happy, but I have not been pushing four-year college. I would be very proud to have an electrician. In fact, I need an electrician at my house half the time for all the things to go out. Income and lack of awareness. They don't know. They don't know. This one right here, someone provided income and lack of awareness. They don't know how much money you can make an electrician in Austin, Texas. It may be not as much in the valley. It may be more in the valley, just depending on what you're doing. The different sectors and the different professions. There is no training to pass the actual master electrician examination. I can find no courses that are relevant to pass this test. So the agency doesn't provide courses per se, but we have a candidate information bulletin that pretty much gives you the scheme of things and the information that you need to be successful. It's an open book exam, still hard, but we're trying to make sure we meet minimum competency, not just pass individuals so they can go on in the profession and make money. We got to make sure that they're actually meeting minimum competency standards, and we have subject matter experts that review these examinations. We have subject matter experts that review these examinations, and kudos to them. They do the yeoman's work. They have the hard job of deciding what is that minimum competency for a journeyman electrician. What is the minimum competency for a master to be able to do one-line drawings? Employers not mandating licensed electricians. So it sounds like we've got individuals being hired that are helpers, or maybe they're not even getting their apprentice license. I'm not sure. Employers not mandating licensed electricians. Everybody doing electrical work that's not exempted in Texas should have at least an apprentice license. Now, whether or not they're learning or they're getting that skills development could be on their apprenticeship programs, could be on their schooling, could be on their employers. Lack of understanding about post-high school education opportunities that are not four-year colleges. I'm certain that is the case. Employers not mandating license, sense that a blue-collar trade is beneath people. I would be proud to have a tradesman in my family. I think it's something to be proud of, and I think the tables have turned. I think we've turned a corner on that. School to prison pipeline. Wow, that's a powerful statement there. That's not a good thing. And I think someone spoke earlier about the counselor. It was you that spoke about the counselors having to do with socioeconomic and mental, all those things that are in the high schools we know are happening, but not necessarily related to career development. The perception gap that college is necessary to thrive financially. I see some trends here. Schools have cosmetology and auto body class, but no construction trade classes. 21 years here at the agency, and my kids are going to actually Crockett High School, AISD, and they just got their construction trades building as part of a bond program recently. That's a great thing. My daughter's almost graduated, but so she missed out on some of those things, but there is progress. I think Mr. Bell said it. The needle is moving. There is progress. We got to keep that momentum going, or we'll be having these kind of summits 5 or 10 years from now. Employers not mandating license, school to prison. I did that one. Let's see. New generation does not want to perform physical labor. I've got some articles that our chief electrical code specialist provided to me. There is a difference between the millennials and our generation, the X generation. There are some expectations that I get to make a lot of money and maybe I don't have to be in 100-degree heat or be outside. There's people that they don't understand that they do have to pull that conduit or place that conduit, pull that wire. They've got to get the work done or it's not going to happen. HR policies may prevent individuals who get hired, who may otherwise be a good fit, criminal history, and lack of a high school diploma.
High school, sorry, autocorrect.
Oh, no, it's okay. No apology. So there's a way that we can capture names. I think the anonymous approach is probably best. This can come from, like I said, anywhere. There, in the future, if we do this again, I expect that we will try. We may actually want you to put your names up there so we can follow up. We may go out with associations and larger groups and try to focus on the issues that they're dealing with in their regions. The growth and decline in apprenticeship programs. That's why I asked the question of Mr. Maroney early, is there some kind of accountability? Is there reporting of their graduation rates? I know we do that with our barber and cosmetology programs, so they can compare apples to apples. What are the pass rates on the exam at this school compared to this school? That's going to help with whether or not you pick this school or that school, and it's going to help with deciding which teachers are successful. Not necessarily teaching to the exam, but producing students that are successful in either getting jobs or having placement of jobs and getting that exam under their belt. The push for the traditional four-year college model, the devaluation of skilled labor, and the high endorsement of a college education. Skilled trades are advertised as low-class trash. Wow. I'm not sure how we're going to be able to get this on our website, but this is powerful stuff. This is the stuff that needs to be talked about, and the parents need to hear it. They need to be in the rooms with their kids. When that counselor, who doesn't even know my daughter's not in the medical programs, but he recommends her for scholarships related to medical programs, he's got 500 kids he's trying to take care of, but my daughter's making good grades. He put her on a list for an endowment and funding for potential scholarships. It's difficult to keep up with everything they have to do, but we need more involvement. We need people assigned that are going to help lead these kids the direction they need to go. This is awesome. I'm dating myself a little bit. The Jerry Lewis Telethon used to have muscular dystrophy telethon, and you'd try to see, they'd put entertainers out there, and they'd be taking phone calls, and they're trying to raise money to satisfy muscular dystrophy. I didn't know what we were going to get when we put out 237,000 emails. I didn't know what the participation levels were going to be. I'm very pleased to have what we have here, but it's kind of scary putting the information out there and not knowing what you're going to get. So I'm very pleased with what we have here. Continue to send your responses, but I'm going to close it down. I know there's a 30-second delay. I'm going to get through a couple more of these. Start at the bottom. Lack of trade opportunity, education, and awareness at the high school level. Growth and decline in interest for apprenticeship programs. In local government, we don't have an option for an apprenticeship program to attract new people. Low wages and a robust economy throughout the country. Electrical work in other states have higher wages and better benefits. I think, Mr. Strauss, you brought it up. I'm sure the workforce out there, hearing you say more money and better benefits, you'll get a cheer. It's probably a little murmur cheer. Everybody out there is cheering about that. But the market's going to dictate. It really is. And I expect people are going to move to places where they can afford to live and end up having to drive maybe 100 miles to that job that pays them what they need for their work and their time. This is excellent. Excellent work here. I'm going to close out of this one, and we're going to move on to another question. And forgive me, I'm still learning this software. I think it's very helpful. What reasons explain the phenomenon of career apprentices? Now, Mr. Roach, you specifically brought this up. This was a couple of meetings ago, but I remembered it, and I included it in our questions. So I'm going to activate this question, and we're going to make it big for the screen. What reasons explain the phenomenon of career apprentices? We don't have a statutory mandate or administrative rule that requires somebody who gets an apprentice license to actually move on to be a residential wireman or a journeyman or a master electrician. So many of these individuals, if they get experience and they don't have to be a supervisor, if they can make $25 an hour and feed their family, maybe they don't move up. Maybe that's the reason, because they're making enough money as an apprentice. I'm sorry. So one of the phenomenon is marijuana. Okay, so perhaps that could be the case in some places. Ignorance. I want instead of me talking, ignorance. I'm not going to call out the person that put this up here, but what do you think that could mean? Okay.
The reason I put ignorance is simply because they don't understand how much better and more quality of life they can have by passing a simple test than maybe possibly a whole week studying.
Whose responsibility is it to educate them on that, you think? Is it their own to...
It depends on where they're at. I mean, I think everything you learn is your responsibility.
Right. Ultimately, that individual needs to have some, hey, I want to get this done. I want to make better for my family. I want to live in a better house. I want to have a better condition, living conditions, whatever it may be. If the workforce is not developing, though, for the work, the employees and the work they need to get done, at some point, I think the employer gets in there, the education and background of this individual could be called into question, and they could be passed over. Right now, they're happy because they got that job, but when the work runs out, they're only going to keep the top two, the ones that know the journeyman work, level work, or the master level work. It's good stuff.
States where there's an assignment
I need, actually, I'm asking for input, and I went out of turn. I really need everybody to talk to the microphone, and my apologies on that. What I'm going to do is this. I'm sorry. No, you did good.
Okay, so Rick Moore, I'm a licensed master electrician here in Texas and some other states. And in other states where there's an assignment of an apprentice being attached to a journeyman, and there's a limitation of the quantity of apprentices that can be attached to a journeyman, in those states, you find that they push those apprentices to get those licenses so that they can get more people in there to work, because there's a limitation of how many apprentices they can have working, because they got to have more journeymen when they have more work.
Mr. Moore, thank you very much. That makes good sense. That makes good sense. All right, let's see what no state journeyman applications. The employer does not encourage the individual. Language barriers. That could be a very good one in multiple language states. Lack of self-confidence. Not wanting the responsibility. I think that goes a long way. Still got our voice here. We allow them to stay there. So are we going to kick them off the job sites if they don't move on? Anybody want to elaborate on that one? Is there something that should force people to move on and move on to be a residential wireman or journeyman? Should there be a statutory mandate perhaps, or a rule that we need to explore? Lack of initiative, complacency, ignorance.
David, Keith Bell with the advisory board. I'll tell you that I've been in this industry over 40 years. Prior to a state license, all the municipalities required a licensed journeyman on every project, or a residential wireman on a residential project or apartment, less than 4 stories. That isn't, supervision and direct supervision is in the statute, but the rules have never been, implemented. Certainly, I believe if we're required to have a journeyman on every project, then what that does to some of the comments that have been made about wages, if you don't have enough, it's economics 101. If the supply doesn't move and the demand moves, the equilibrium is a higher price. And so right now, when there's no mandate of any kind of supervision of a licensed person on every project, then everybody can be an apprentice. And so we, as employers, are paying the wages that we need based on somebody's experience or their ability, regardless of licensure. So I'll pay an apprentice more money than I'll pay a journeyman if he's got the applicable experience and the ability. And so until you've got an actual statutory requirement, as much as we'd all like to sit around here as contractors and think of ourselves as Boy Scouts, you're making a living and you're going to meet the requirements of the statute. So
Thank you for
those
sharing
are
that, Mr.
things
Bill.
that
That's
you're
very
going to
telling.
have to push from a legislative standpoint and to help you get this done.
Very insightful. Possibly the idea of extending school homework after high school when it's just as easy to do the same work without it. If employers demanded their workers go to apprenticeship programs, they will have a higher skilled, more productive workforce. So we need to try to push that. There's no state law dictating a licensed journeyman to apprentice ratio. The advanced testing is based on soft skills, but appearances are primarily hard skilled. Striving for mediocrity. Undercutting more skilled and higher wage earners to ensure employability. The problem is not getting an apprentice license. The problem is getting the individual into an apprenticeship program. Wow. So these are...
Is that because of lack of ability?
David, microphone.
Mike Maroney, the question is that I'm just following up is it's not lack of apprentice programs, it's getting into one. Is it just a barrier to entry? What's the problem? Thoughts?
Keith Bell with the advisory board. Just like the IEC in Dallas or any other IEC apprenticeship program or the IBW, we never turn anybody away that wants to come into an apprenticeship program. The key is whether or not the employee wants to spend their time one night a week going to class. Now, the other piece of that is where the employer will want to make the commitment for the cost of that training, that when you get that person trained and you invest in them, then they go somewhere else tomorrow to get another job. So really, it's an investment by the employer, and it is really just each employer's desire whether or not they want to invest into a skilled workforce. And once again, it's not mandated or required, so some of us do, others don't, but I can assure you, and I'm not going to speak for the IBW, but I don't think they're turning anybody away in their apprenticeship programs, and we're certainly sure not as the IEC. We add additional classrooms, additional instructors annually, and we have a January class as well as a September class, so we celebrate that January entry so that a first-year apprentice that comes in, he may be behind on the hours, but from a curriculum standpoint, he's ready to go to year 2 in September of the second year.
Dave? Mark
Roach?
Roach, to sort of add on to what Chairman Bell just pointed out, I think, and I don't know, if you guys tell me if you disagree with me, I think another one of the major problems is the fact that a lot of employers look at training as, I question whether I want to make that kind of investment because when I get them trained, they'll just leave. They'll go somewhere else. And, I mean, that's probably pretty common. I know I used to think about it when I was contracting. I contracted for about 20 years. But the backside of that is what if you don't train them and they stay on?
The answers have been provided online. We were going to find some way. We're capturing them right now. We're going to find some way to actually post them online. So all the information you put, don't stop responding to those questions. It will be posted online even after this stuff ends. We'll find a way to get it online so we can share the information and the thoughts that the public's provided to us. Yes, sir.
Yeah, my name's Gary Bresch. I'm with the IBW. And I took a look. We've got 16 registered apprenticeship programs across the state. Over 1,800 apprentices. We spend over $5 million annually in our budget. We can double, triple, quadruple the size of that tomorrow, but it takes business willing to hire those reputable contractors, where the contractors like Keith that belong to the IEC program or our contractors, IBW or ABC programs. It takes the end user has got to quit going after the lowest common denominator, because Keith said it. We adhere to state statutes. And as you keep driving that down, it gets harder and harder. Like, we can ramp up the number of people in apprenticeship, and you saw the number of what was it, 35,000 licensed versus 75,000 apprentices. But how many of them are in registered apprenticeship programs? That number drops drastically, and as a result, you don't get that flow of semi-skilled on through the ranks on up to skilled, licensed professional career craftsmen.
Very good points. Anybody else? I'm going to post another question that's part of the factors. Now, we are going to come on 12 o'clock pretty quick here, and we have a meeting, and an actual advisory board meeting at 1 o'clock. The next question, what industry pays the highest wages for a Texas journeyman electrician? I think some of Mariana's statistics actually showed what those wages were, but just looking for audience input on this. Wow. Jumped up really quick. And notice it's already in that order. We kind of did some tests here at home thinking about what the pay would be, and we expected it would go. Oh, look, one changed. It's going back and forth. It's a competition. As the responses come in, this will continue to capture the data, and we'll find out who actually thinks they're paying the best wage, and then you know as an employer what you're competing with out there.
Where to focus?
It should have been industrial, commercial, and residential.
Commercial, healthcare, hospitals, and commercial are tied. While we're getting a few more responses in, I wanted to share with you, there was an article done by National Building Sciences that our Chief Electrical Occupation Code Specialist, Mr. Jerry Daniel, forwarded to me. I'm going to also include that on our website, or at least a link to it. I found the information enlightening, and the challenge that it put out with the studies that were done in 2015, 2016, is that the employers need to engage, period. It needs to happen. But it put some ancillary responsibilities on other entities, including state government. Governments have to get involved. This isn't necessarily our wheelhouse, but coming in here and facilitating these discussions, getting the brains together, I feel like we made a step in the right direction, and I hadn't even read that article until Jerry had found it, did some research on it, and sent it on forward to me. So I applaud, y'all deserve some applause for actually taking the time, making the time. If the conversations can continue beyond today's meeting and into maybe the advisory board, public comment period, we have an advisory board in 1 hour, everybody go to lunch, and we have an agenda item for discussion of this. It's at the end of the advisory board where we can discuss and we can have public comments on this stuff. But it needs to go beyond this. The path forward, this meeting is not going to give us all the solutions. In fact, we're going to be hard-pressed to get to any solutions. It's not going to be the end-all. We're going to have to do more to facilitate these discussions if we're going to make progress. I expect many of the people in this room aren't really causing the problem. They're probably the leaders as it comes to this effort in trying to get qualified electricians.
Dave?
Yes,
Mark
sir,
Roach,
Mr. Broach.
Do you think there's going to be a follow-up summit at some point in the future?
Mr. Francis,
Should be.
what is your pleasure?
I think we should.
We didn't finish.
I think
that's for
everybody in
sure.
the room is recognizing that this is just the first quarter and we had the kickoff. Unlike my amazing, great Sooners who dominated in the first quarter, we still got to play 4 quarters of this thing. So we got to. I think we're going to come back. When we see the information that's going up here, you got a chance to reflect on it. I think it's going to allow us to be smarter the next time we get together. And maybe the next summit is a little bit more compressed and targeted. And it's saying, oh, here are the 5 things that came out of the last meeting. What do we think about those? And then maybe there's a third one that says, here's the top 2. Now, what is the action plan for those? That makes sense to me. So, and plus, relatively, most of the people in there are fairly handsome. It'll be good to see you guys again, too.
Many of the factors identified during that question session is probably going to give us, well, if you have a factor that's causing it, here's the answer, the opposite of this, what caused it. I'm going to skip directly to these 2 last questions because it involves us as an agency. I'm not just making us a facilitator. I'm going to hold us accountable as a state government, but I'm going to ask this one first. Oops, let me go back. I got to actually activate that question. Let me see. Activated? Activated, yes. So make it big. What actions, be specific, can an employer take to immediately begin addressing the shortage of qualified electricians in Texas? So not 5 or 10 years down the road, which we've got some guys working on that, some associations. Tomorrow, when you go back to your offices, what are you going to do? Is there something that can be done that an employer can take to immediately begin addressing the shortage of qualified electricians in Texas? I know that at our high school, where both my boys went, my daughter's at, we got Marine and Army recruiters there every week. They're participating in the physical education classes. You know what? I'd be very proud if any of my kids went into the military, very fond of what they've been able to accomplish, but they're doing some hard recruiting. We don't see that necessarily for the barber cosmetology programs, but they've got a school there. We don't see it necessarily for the electricians and the air conditioning guys, but if we had that, perhaps there'd be more people gaining entry. So recruiting, there it is. Mandate a mandatory apprenticeship program for non-qualified electricians, advertising in schools. Invest in marketing and recruitment. Push for craft training in the high school level. Accepting more reciprocity for states. I have to give kudos to our staff that have worked really hard with the multi-state agreement. We've actually got journeyman reciprocity with many states, and that was because we got directives from our advisory board that we wanted to pursue it, and our guys make it happen, and they're still trying to make it happen. It's hard work. We actually have to get out there and make those deals and travel and shake hands and break bread sometimes in order to make them understand that we got a good program here in Texas. Get involved with the apprenticeship programs in your area. Build incentives for an apprentice to learn more and move up. Partner with workforce development agencies. If they don't belong to a registered apprenticeship program, join one. If they do, hire another employee to enter the apprenticeship. Give everyone a 25% raise in pay. And perhaps there are some industries that can do that because they're having taxes provided back to them. They're going to have a windfall of monies. Don't know that. It's going to depend on what region you're in and what industry. Reciprocate with more states. For the persons that would put reciprocate with more states, is that master level? Is it just journeyman level? Does anybody wish to speak to that? Yes, sir. Thank you, Ms. Tamara.
Gabe Flores, IBW 520. You could recognize more on-the-job training so that people who move here and have an apprentice license, they can take the test or they can qualify for the test. We actually have an apprentice who moved here from another state, and TDLR rejected his application because the state did not have a master's license that he worked for, so he was denied.
Thank you for sharing that with us. Okay, so we're getting close to 12 o'clock. I am going to go ahead and move to the next question because I think it gets to holding ourselves accountable. I'm going to ask the question. I think, Mr. Bell, you said it best. You got to be, when you go into these things and you don't know what the answers are, but you're asking the questions, that's kind of dangerous territory. So I'm going to put this up there. Let me activate it. What actions, and be specific, can TDLR take to immediately address the shortage of qualified electricians in Texas? I don't know if there is anything. I think we try to be forward-thinking, but y'all are the ones that keep us honest. We try to be transparent. We are giving you this opportunity. We need to actually hear, is there something we can do? Sorry about that. Should have turned off my emails. We're going to be closing out with this question and encourage you strongly to attend our advisory board. You get to take a lunch break. There's a Whataburger. There's a Sonic up close if you wanted to stay close and not go too far. I have to give kudos and thanks to all the people that made this happen. Alaric in the back actually helped encourage me to try this new venue. So Alaric, if you would please stand up. I appreciate the encouragement that you gave me because this is kind of scary. Thank you, Alaric. It's new technology. It's a new venue. I think it has some potential for us. Also would like to thank our advisory board staff support, the Tamalas, the Delias that actually get all this stuff coordinated. My electricians, of course, that give me the confidence to know that if there's a question asked that I don't know the answer to, I can always pass it to them. And for all of the TDR staff that showed up to just listen in. Most kudos go to our advisory board that allowed us to do this, encouraged us to do this, and I think we got here because of the issues that they raised at our advisory board meeting. So let's start at the bottom. Reciprocity, it's the National Electrical Code. So, yeah, if we've got a state standard that's the National Electrical Code, we should have as much reciprocity as we can get. Our guys are working on it hard, and in fact, we've got some more agreements in the works. It takes a little bit of time, some negotiations. And, of course, the governor's office may have some opinions on the reciprocity as well, so we need to coordinate through them as well. Activate an apprentice to journeyman ratio, all right? A mandate for new electricians to be in an apprenticeship program that will keep the new apprenticeship interested and have them moving up into becoming a journeyman and also a master electrician. So some kind of motivation path, a career path that requires them to do it. Hold to high standards, ensure that each electrician is qualified. Put out an ad campaign. I love that one. I wish we could get somebody, know somebody important, maybe some kind of celebrity that could do some Willie Nelson, Don't Mess with Texas, or a Got Milk kind of campaign for us. That would be awesome. Sell me on it. Why would I want to be part of your mission? It might be something other than money. Wow. Maximum number of years for an apprentice to complete a program before having to start over. The ratios of apprentices to journeymen should be put in place. Need to require a ratio. Thoughts here are we don't need training funds. We need people, and not the people that aren't cut out for college, but smart, hardworking, sharp people. TDR can lead the charge on changing attitudes of the public towards skilled trades. That would help tremendously. We do consider these, we refer to them as trades, and you should take pride in the crafts and trades. But profession, I think, is the word that you use. They've got to see it as a profession that you don't have to have a college degree. My college degree has helped me, but I don't think that's what got me to where is my parents, my upbringing, my high school education. Those are the things I'm still using. My college degree started me out here, but it's not necessarily what's helping me finish. So I agree with those comments. We don't need training funds. We need people, and not the people that aren't cut out for college. Continue facilitating the groups and leaders in the electrical apprenticeship industries. Require mandatory approved apprenticeship classes for a registered apprentice license. All right, so I want to tell everybody thank you for y'all's attendance here. I'm sorry we ran out of time. I did not expect. I'm actually encouraged that there was so much discussion. I'm hoping, and I may put out one more, so keep this app on your phone. I may put out one more question that will be out there for the rest of the day. And do you think this Poll Everywhere app is valuable? And if so, maybe give us some feedback on it, because I think it has value, and maybe we can use it in a different way, in a different venue, larger venue, where we know who the audience is and what their interests are, and we can cater those questions to what their needs are. So we can gather that data, share it with TWC, share it with the employers, and maybe have something done. I need to get us out of here so we can rearrange chairs. But with that, I'll turn it back over to Mr. Keith Bell.
Thank you, David, and I want to thank you for your efforts putting this summit together, the rest of the TDLR staff, Bryan for supporting this initiative.
Absolutely.
I've been here 14 years, and this is outstanding that Bryan, you supported David into doing this. I want to thank everybody that came here today. I mean, we come from all over the state of Texas to sit through here and, for 3 hours. Those that are online that are watching and participated in the polls, obviously this is an issue that's very complex. It's something that didn't happen overnight, and it won't get fixed that way either. I just hope we can all collaborate as industry leaders and try to move the needle and get this done. Thanks again for being here. I guess at this point we will try to set a date for the summit 201 and
2.0, yes.
2.0 and see if we can't discuss and strategize a path moving forward. But once again, thanks for being here. Thanks for participating. And it is 12:05 p.m. and we stand adjourned.